Hello everyone, and welcome to my in-depth critique and analysis for Loki. I was originally going to start working on The Boys Season 2 Part 2 in-depth critique and analysis, but this show came along and after watching Episode 2, I had a strong feeling inside of me that I may want to do an in-depth review of this show. And after thinking about it, I decided to pull the plug and do it. Cause this show is kind of bizarre. Now for those of you who may not be aware, I uploaded a video covering the first episode of Loki. I was not pleased with it. Really, not pleased with it. It changed the whole outlook of the entire MCU for the worse, it got rid of free will, introduced a power far above the Infinity Stones, and a whole bunch of stuff that broke the entire way the MCU worked. If you want more in-depth of what I thought at the time of just the first episode, you can click the link in the description. Oh, don't worry, I'll be going in-depth in this one, but we'll be going through the whole show rather than just the first episode. But as the show went along, it became apparent that what we were told about the TVA was all a lie and that the whole cartoon infomercial on the TV was all BS in the beginning. So I was thinking that maybe I could have been wrong, so I became a little hopeful again, thinking that maybe you could retcon what was set up for the better and that the MCU could be saved from this. And was it?
Nope.
Now, whatever your outlook is on how the TVA works and how it affects the universe doesn't matter really, because there is still stuff in this show that makes no sense outside of the whole TVA thing. And that is what this video is for. I am going to go through all 6 episodes and point out all the terrible plot holes, inconsistencies, and bad writing that I can find. Now, if you enjoy the show, that is fine. Enjoyment is different than critique. I enjoyed the show a bit while watching it, mostly because of Loki and the great performance Tom Hiddleston gives. It is what kept me watching the show for the most part. But when you really think about it, a lot of the things in this show does not make sense and wasn't really thought out. And that is what we are here to discuss. So let's not waste any more time and let's dive into this show and see if it's as good as everyone is praising it to be. We begin by going back to 2012, or more particularly, the 2012 of Avengers Endgame. We start off with Loki on this timeline being brought down to the ground floor. We know what happens here, right? Tony gets a heart attack, the case carrying the tesseract is kicked to Tony, but gets knocked out of his hands by the Hulk. The tesseract lands at Loki's feet, and Loki decides to take the opportunity to use it to escape. We get our little Marvel intro, and now we are all set. We then are taken to a desert, particularly the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, where Loki comes through a portal out of the sky and hits the ground at immense speed. And now we already have the first problem with the episode, and we aren't even frickin' 5 minutes in. What's the problem? Well, I'll tell you. Firstly, this is the space stone that allows you to be transported to wherever you wish, right? You basically just have to hold it in your hand and think of where you want to go. I mean, I assume that's how it works, considering that's how I basically see it work. When Thanos gets the space stone, basically he can kind of go wherever he wants to go. So if that's the case, why did Loki go to the Gobi Desert? I mean, I know it's deserted and maybe nobody here knows who he is, but word of mouth can travel fast, and it's still on Earth, a planet in which he is a wanted fugitive now. And the attack on New York is going to be all over the news, so my guess is that most, if not almost all, the entire population of Earth is going to know who Loki is. But even if you think this critique is not really that strong, here's an even stronger one. Why did he open a portal hundreds if not thousands of feet in the air and come out of it at intense speed? When Thanos used it in Infinity War, he just opened a portal and he would come out the other side just fine. All he had to do was walk through, really. So why with Loki does it open up in the air and why does he come out at intense speed? He wasn't traveling fast when he opened the portal, so why does he come out blazing? The only reason I can think of that this was done was because they wanted a laugh. Haha, look at Loki falling out of the sky like a cannon. Meow. Anyway, the impact was strong enough to break his shackles. Some locals approach him, and he decides to take a stand on a rock and give a nice little speech. But before he can finish, some armored peeps come through some gateway. Hey look, one of them has a GoPro. LOL. Loki tells them to not touch the cube and they get all armed up. Then we get our introduction to B-15. She comes in and says that Loki has violated the sacred timeline and that he is under arrest for doing so. So now we are getting into one of my other critiques I have of the show, and that is that the TVA is very stupid. Right, so we know why they are here in context to the rest of the show, right? The timeline is branching and they basically have to come and reset it, so they armored up and send their officers to get the variant and basically reset the timeline. Well, here's the thing. Why are they so ill-equipped, and why are their weapons so stupid? Why do they not have any long-range weapons? They literally only have batons, and they have to touch you in order to prune you, or slow you down, whatever it is. So let's say there was a normal human being and not Loki, okay? What happens if he runs? What if it's someone like Usain Bolt and can run faster than they can? What are they going to do? Chase him? It's not like they can shoot him or something. They only have batons. They don't have any long-range weapons at any kind. They have to be within arm distance to have any weapons that are effective on him. I mean, I guess you can open up a gateway and maybe try to cut him off, but in order to use this thing, you have to enter, like, coordinates and stuff, which is going to take time. And also, you can just change his course instantly. But wait, there is something even worse. What if a variant they are going after is a speedster like Quicksilver? These TVA officers are normal humans, and this is really confirmed later on, so there is no way they would be able to catch him or even shoot him because he would be too fast for them. So what would they use on a variant Quicksilver? What would they use on a variant superpower being? They literally only have batons and reset charges. That is it. What would they do if they go up against Thanos? Thanos would just instantly wipe them out with the Infinity Stones. And they would be useless against a being like Quicksilver and a whole bunch of other superheroes because they would be more powerful than them. They literally have no superpowers. They're normal human beings and they only have batons and the reset charges. That is the only weapons we ever see them use. Okay, I know I threw a bit at you, but here's the bottom line. These officers, these TVA officers, who are normal humans, are not equipped to deal with power above a normal human being. I know they get Loki, but that's because he's stupid, and I'll address that in a second. Assuming that every single one of these officers are normal human beings, which it appears they are, because we don't see any other kind of species or any other kind of beings from other planets be involved with the TVA or be part of the TVA, it's always humans, which is very odd considering the fact that basically this whole facility, this whole TVA oversees time and space in its entirety of all the universes, so you would think that maybe they would hire other beings or get other beings to join their thing, but no. Just find a bunch of variants and beings way more powerful than humans, like a variants of Thanos, erase their memory, make them the time cops and use them instead. That would be more beneficial, efficient, effective, everything. Why don't they do this? Also, why do the TVA officers never use any of the weapons that they capture from the timelines, like the bunch of Infinity Stones they have in their drawers? Why not weaponize them for the TVA's advantage? You could probably have captured Sylvie earlier if you just used those. Probably could have caught her ages ago if you had any weaponry of any kind besides a frickin' glow stick. This task force is so ineffective. It is pathetic. Anyway, the officers tell Loki that he must go with them for violating the sacred timeline and be put on trial. Loki tells them to step aside before he does something bad to them.
Now get out of my way.
What the fuck? Really? Loki is now an incompetent buffoon? He just walks up to the officer and gets hit and he does nothing. He doesn't use his powers, he doesn't use any kind of mischief, trickery, nothing. Remember, in the original Avengers, and I'm going to be comparing this Loki to Avengers Loki a lot, so get used to it, when he invaded the base and took on that platoon of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, being bulletproof and stuff of the sort, being actually threatening. Remember when he got a whole group of humans to kneel? Remember when he fought Captain America and Thor and was actually somewhat formidable at least? He got hit with Cap's shield and it didn't do anything to him. Loki was actually somewhat of a decent, competent fighter and villain. But give them a prune stick and no, Loki can't take them on. Look, I understand that Loki has always had a comedic element to him and through the movies, that sometimes he is made fun of and shown how silly he can be. But not to this level. He doesn't know who these people are. They just walk through a frickin' portal out of nowhere and has no idea who they are, where they come from, or their power level. You think he would be more precautious, cunning, and actually, intelligent? But no, we have to take that away, otherwise we wouldn't have a story. We have to make Loki incompetent to make the TVA look good.
You're now moving at 1/16th speed, feeling all that pain in real time.
Oh, thanks for telling us that. There's no way we could have known. Anyway, they take him up and leave, but not before placing a reset charge. So what does this thing do? Well, according to episode 2,
Reset charges prune the affected radius of a branched timeline, allowing time to heal all its wounds. By the way, it sounds like a nice way of saying disintegrate everything in its vicinity.
which also means it disintegrates everything that is basically not supposed to be there or anything that isn't supposed to happen, I guess. At least that is what I assume, since these things don't disintegrate everything in its vicinity, just anything that I guess is not supposed to be there. I mean, the problem with these reset charges is we aren't told exactly how they work or how they reset time or how how they fix branches other than seeing it prune things. It doesn't make any sense. Do they just disintegrate, or can they also create? Because you see, they take Loki and the Tesseract out of the branch timeline, and it appears, at least what we know about these things, is that they just disintegrate stuff that I guess isn't supposed to be there, like people or objects. But like, if that is all that it does, then the timeline has not been reset. It just erases things. And what the heck would it need to erase? They took everything that was not supposed to be there, Loki and the Tesseract. And also, how far do these things spread? Can it be universal? Can one reset charge wipe out an entire universe? If there was a universal scaled Nexus event that happened, could these charges reset all the universes and prune everything in that universe? Because they place it in the desert, and there isn't anything to disintegrate or prune. Also, another good question, do the Avengers get pruned by this thing? Because the Tesseract is gone now, and so is Loki, so this completely changes everything that is supposed to happen according to the timeline. Thor 2 cannot happen, and neither will Infinity War, because the Tesseract is completely gone from the timeline. It no longer exists. So that means anyone and anything affected by the actions that were not supposed to happen have to be pruned, including the Avengers. So that means that this charge has to spread as far as all the way back to New York, right? And also, we are to assume these charges only affect people who are affected by the variant actions. But this still doesn't explain how those charges fix a branch. They only disintegrate everything that is not supposed to exist within this location or place, which means that this reality, this branch timeline, still exists because it only prunes things that aren't supposed to be there, or that were affected by variant actions. So what if someone who is not affected at all by the events of Loki taking the Tesseract sees the Avengers or a certain area be pruned? Doesn't that now create a branch in the timeline because they saw something they were not supposed to? The only way this reset charge works is if it disintegrates the entire universe, the entire timeline. Everyone and everything in it dies. Also, going back to the beginning of this show real quick, why aren't the 2023 Avengers that traveled back to this moment taken by the TV as well? Why are they not charged with violating the timeline? Someone may say, oh, because the judge said that they did what was supposed to happen, and Loki escaping was not supposed to happen. Well, this is a huge contradiction, though. Firstly, I want to address that the Avengers would have created a timeline branch with their action, because if Tony successfully took the Tesseract and Hulk never interfered and knocked it out of his hand, Thor and Loki would have to get home another way, and we can safely assume that these actions will cascade into more actions that aren't supposed to happen until a new timeline branch is created. They used the Tesseract in the original Avengers to get home, but now the Tesseract is taken. They're going to have to do choices that are against the timeline, and enough choices will eventually create a branch timeline. All this would not have happened if they never went back in time. Now, you may say that this branch will be fixed because the Avengers returned the stone to the same timeline at the exact point it is taken, so that chronologically it never left. This was the logic that was used by Banner in Avengers Endgame. Well, there is a conflict here between Avengers Endgame and this show in terms of how timeline and time travel works. We are going to jump ahead a bit, but that's just to explain this point. See, in episode 2, Mobius explains that you have to show up to a branch reality in real time in order to reset it, and that showing up before then will not fix the branch. So, technically speaking, if the Avengers showed up at the point they took the stone, that wouldn't reset the reality according to Mobius, because the branch timeline is currently evolving. Do you see what I am saying? There's a logical contradiction between the Sorcerer Supreme explanation of time and Mobius's explanation of time. They cannot both be right because it would be a logical contradiction between the two. So if we are going by the logic of Loki, then the Avengers should have been taken into custody because they created a branch timeline by taking a stone out of it and changing events that were supposed to happen. The Sorceress Supreme explained to Banner that removing a stone would create a branch timeline, but Banner rebutted saying that they can just return to the exact time and point it was taken so that chronologically it never left. But in Loki it is explained that when an action is done, or in this case let's say a stone is removed from a timeline, that would create a Nexus event and a branch that they would have to show up in real time in order to fix. You see, both of these cannot exist in the same universe. They logically contradict each other. So if we are going by the logic of Loki, then the Avengers should have been taken into custody, because they created a branch timeline by taking a stone out of it and changing events that were supposed to happen. So even if Captain America returned the stones to the exact point, it wouldn't matter. But wait, there is even another point we must address. According to the logic of Loki, what happens in the movie Avengers Endgame should be a branch timeline that needs to be pruned. Because Judge Renslayer later in the episode said that Loki was not supposed to take the Tesseract. Well, the events of Avengers Endgame happen specifically because Loki does take the Tesseract. After that, Tony and Captain America are trying to think of what they can do, and Tony comes up with the idea to travel to a US base at another point in time to get more Pym particles and get the Tesseract. It's the area where Tony meets his father and where Captain America sees Peggy again. All those events that happen afterward happen because Loki takes the Tesseract. But Loki was not supposed to take the Tesseract, but he does. So wouldn't Avengers Endgame basically be a branch timeline because of a choice Loki did that was not supposed to happen? Like, this just hurts my brain whenever I think about it. Loki had to take it for this to happen, but he wasn't supposed to. So, like, what? When? Why? What is anything anymore? How is anything? Why is anything? Anyway, I know I have thrown a lot at you in just these few minutes of the review, so let's go ahead and continue on with the plot of the first episode, shall we? Loki is finally taken to the TVA headquarters. He is about to be checked in, but decides to make a daring escape with some clever trickery in mind. Oh wait, no, that would be what Competent Loki from Avengers would do. This one just decides to try to run for it. Yeah, he doesn't know where he is, or where the exit is, or what to do. He just decides to run. We know Loki has superpowers, but he doesn't even try to use any of them. He just decides, hey, I'll just make a run for it. I'll be fine. And no, you cannot use the excuse of, oh, well, maybe he already tried it and he already knows it doesn't work. No. In the later scene in the courtroom when he's on trial, it is confirmed that he doesn't try his powers until then, which is another stupid point, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Point of me bringing this up now is to show he hasn't tried to use his powers yet. He just decides, oh, what should I do? As far as I'm aware, I have many options to my disposal, many powers I could use, and I'm just gonna try to run for it. Why? Because I'm an idiot. That's why. So yeah, he decides to run, and B-15 here has a device that basically resets him to a location in time that he has previously been. But I must point out that this office place where they are is supposed to be beyond space and time. At least that's what this place is according to the show. But this collar thing that the space cop used involves transporting a character to a specific location in time, particularly the past. But they are outside space and time, so how does this time device work here? It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, after that doesn't work, he gets put into this chamber and his clothes get erased. Then the trapdoors open below him. Now, these trapdoors are completely stupid. What if a variant falls on his head and breaks his neck? Then what? These doors are completely counterproductive. But I guess it doesn't matter since the TVA will prune or kill people for as little as not having a number. Anyway, the guy in the room below Loki has a pile of papers that apparently contain everything he has ever said in his life. No. There is no way everything he has ever said is on that pile. Loki is hundreds, if not thousands of years old. He's been around for an extremely long time. That pile right there looks like the size of a huge Stephen King book. There is no way it would fit on there. Also, look there. It says the time status on the paper. When Loki said what? But this place he is at is outside space and time, so why does it matter what he says at the office? This shouldn't be recorded. And how the heck is Loki supposed to verify that that is everything he has ever said? You expect him to read the entire script of his life? I mean, this is beyond reading a long terms of service. This is your whole life we're talking about. Is this just a stupid joke the writers put in about not reading terms or conditions or something? What if you have a variant that does want to read the whole transcript of their life? Are you going to wait there for them to do so? Like, really? Anyway, out of character, Loki decides to sign the piece of paper, and another trapdoor opens up. Loki has to walk through a machine that confirms he is not a robot and captures his temporal aura. He walks into a big room where there is a ticket holder, and Loki takes one. The guy in front of Loki does not take a ticket, and when he reaches the officer is not happy about it. The guy verbally fights with the officer, and the officer just decides to straight up murder the guy. Prune him right then and there. Which we find out later just means that they sent them to a post-apocalyptic world where they're going to be consumed by a giant fart cloud. So yes, that officer just brutally murdered that guy. So here's the problem, right? What is the point of the court system they have? Why do they even bother if the officers are allowed to straight up prune someone before their trial? How is that fair and even make any sense? What is the point of a trial if any officer can just kill anyone at any time and they don't face any consequences for it? Also, are there different levels of punishment? Because it seems everyone has a sentence of being deleted or reset, which basically means being pruned or killed. So if that is the case, why have a trial and waste time? What is the point of the court system if the trial is literally just them asking, how do you plead? And the variant says, oh, I plead not guilty. And then they go, nope, you're guilty. Bye-bye. That's it. There isn't witnesses, a prosecution, a defense team, procedures, nothing. It's just the variant's words against the TVA. And since pretty much all cases end with the pruning of a variant, why not just do that already? Don't bother going through the court case if they all are going to get the same punishment. If officers are allowed to prune someone before their trial for as little as not having a ticket, why not just prune the variant on the timeline when they arrive? Just show up, prune the variant, do the reset charge, boom. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Anyway, after that, we see Mobius for the first time and some other TVA officers in the year 1549 at an incident where Sylvie murdered some other officers. A kid interrupts them, but Mobius tries to be friendly and get some information out of the child. We find out that Sylvie gave this kid a kablooey candy, which is extremely stupid and careless. Why? Oh, well, maybe because it is evidence that the TVA could use to find her, which they do. Or maybe because they have records of the candy in which the years it was sold and on what planet they are from so that they can pinpoint her location, which they do. Or that they can use that to cross-reference with other information they have on file, which they do. Do you see why this is dumb? It is something that can be used to possibly trace Sylvie and she leaves it behind. Maybe not leave any trace at all, especially since Sylvie's enemy is the TVA that overlooks all of space and time. Just saying. After that, Loki is brought to the courtroom for his trial and for his crime of making a decision that the fascist timekeepers didn't want. Loki then tells them that they have the wrong person on the stand. And he's right. Now, of course, we already addressed the criticism of Loki had to take the tesseract for Avengers Endgame to happen, but they didn't want it to happen, and this makes no sense. But the other question I would have is, what do the timekeepers expect to happen? Do they just expect Loki to stand there and do nothing with the tesseract right at his feet? Why wouldn't he pick it up and escape? That is exactly what a Loki should do. That is exactly what they should expect. Why wouldn't he do that? It would be out of Loki's character if he didn't take a golden opportunity to escape his capture. If the TVA is all-knowing and they know the variant in and out of what they do, as Mobius reveals later, then they should expect that to happen. They should expect that if a captured Loki gets a tesseract right at his feet, what would he do? They should expect him to pick it up and escape. In fact, the all-knowing TVA should know that he would pick it up so much that they should have showed up right there at the Avengers headquarters and stopped it. Now moving on to the next criticism of the scene, as the court case goes on, Loki decides to go ahead and try to use his powers. Now here's a good question. Why did he not try to use his powers at any time earlier? If you are in a situation and you have no idea what is happening, who these people are, what you're dealing with, why wouldn't you use your powers to escape? Why wait till this point? It makes no sense. Why didn't Loki try to use his powers earlier when he was trying to make a run for it? Why not try to use his powers at all? That would be the first thing I would do. The fact that he waits right here to try to use his powers at all is just extremely stupid. Anyway, after this stupid joke, Loki gets sentenced to be reset, aka executed. Mobius pops in saying he could use him to help get the variant that is killing their men. The judge does not like the idea, but gives Loki to Mobius anyway. They then walk down a hallway and Loki looks out the window to see a whole world of the TVA. I like how this is shown as if we are going to explore this world in the future episodes, but we don't. It's just a pretty shot for the sake of a pretty shot. While walking down to the questioning room, Loki is not amused at all by this situation. Loki thinks this whole operation is absurd and that it is even more absurd that they oversee all of time at the request of 3 space lizards. Anyway, Mobius has Loki sit down to talk with him. Pretty standard stuff, much to said here that you wouldn't expect Loki to say, except for that Loki gives a little speech on how freedom is a lie and that it breeds uncertainty and regret, a fork in every road, and that freedom lets you choose the wrong path. I find it odd Loki doesn't realize the hypocrisy of his statements or that Mobius doesn't mention it, but that's just a personal thing with me. Anyway, Mobius starts showing Loki aspects of his life, and Mobius mentions how he loses a lot, which he kinda does. He also hints that Loki likes making people feel small, because Loki feels small and less than those around him, like Thor. I mean, he pretty much says it outright on the hilltop to Thor in Avengers.
I remember a shadow, living in the shade of your greatness.
So yeah, pretty standard stuff. I found this scene interesting, at least maybe a little, but yeah, kinda doesn't advance much. Next notable thing they bring up is that they show Loki what his future was supposed to be if he never picked up the tesseract. They show him that he was the one that led the Dark Elves to his mother, which leads to her death, and Loki just seems to believe it instantly. And I find that odd. Loki shouldn't be believing what he's seeing, at least not straight away. I don't think he would do that. He would doubt until he has shown it to be true beyond any reasonable measure. Loki is a trickster, a liar, someone who by nature loves to fool others. So why would he just believe Mobius outright instantly?
Enjoy killing.
I'll kill you.
What, like you did your mother?
No, Mobius, Loki didn't kill his mother. You did. The TVA did. The Time Lords did. Loki doesn't have a choice. There is no free will. It is confirmed in this series that free will does not exist. This wasn't Loki's fault. He had to do this. If he didn't do this, this would have created a Nexus event and Loki would have to be pruned. His mother's death is the TVA's and the TVA's only, so shut up, Mobius. Anyway, the therapy life recap section gets interrupted by B-15 saying they have a situation. Mobius leaves the room while also leaving his time twister remote behind so that Loki can escape. Loki escapes and tries to go after Casey, who has the tesseract. He tells Casey to give him the tesseract or he will gut him like a fish. And Casey says,
"What's a fish? What's a fish?"
What? He doesn't know what a fish is? Really? He is God knows how old, has access to more information than most do in their entire universe, and he doesn't know what a fish is? When he was taken by the TVA, did they erase his memory of fish? Like, what is this? This is just some stupid joke. But that is not the least of the problems here. What is worse is that when Casey gives Loki the tesseract, Loki notices a box containing multiple Infinity Stones. Yes, multiple. More than 6. Holy, do y'all understand how world-shattering this is? Thanos, the Mad Titan, spent his whole life and purpose looking for stones he could have just picked up from a desk drawer. Now Infinity War has completely lost all its power level. What we thought were the most powerful things in the universe are things that can be kept in a desk and used as paperweights. I feel like next time I watch Infinity War, it isn't gonna be as impressive in terms of the power of them, because I know there is another power that is so enormously bigger that the stones mean nothing to them. Anyway, Loki pretty much gets the realization of how powerful the TVA really is. But his revelation is broken because behind him, B-15 pops in and tries to prune Loki, but Loki teleports out of there. B-15 hits the evidence card instead, and almost vaporized Casey. So is that not a bad thing? The card full of Infinity Stones and other evidence that they wanted to log away just got destroyed. Is that not going to be a problem at all? No? Okay. Also, she did almost hit Casey. If she did hit Casey, would she be, like, charged for murder or something? Loki teleports back into his interrogation room and decides to look at his bright future. Again, taking what he sees to be very true very easily and just believing it without much convincing or without much question. Now, here's the thing, right? In theory, I like the idea of this scene, because the point of it is to show Loki that he never would have any glorious purpose and that he only exists to cause pain and death so that others would be better. This is the scene where he is supposed to accept and deal with the fact that he was never destined for any glory. It could be a great internal conflict for Loki, in theory, refusing to believe this was his destiny and accepting that it was an outcome for him. But the problem is it is done too early in the show. Now, something people have said that is completely wrong is that after this scene, this Loki is pretty much the exact same as original Loki from the films and part of the timeline because basically he's seen his entire life. No, that is not true at all. Loki seeing a possible future of what his arc and journey may entail and actually living and experiencing it is not the same thing at all. How does that make any sense? The stuff that you, yes you, the audience have personally experienced in your life, do you think you would be the same person if you just saw it on a TV screen? What if you have lost someone close to you? You seeing them die in a possible future that, again, you don't know if it's true or not, is not the same as losing them yourself. The arc that Loki has in the movies / the sacred timeline goes on, and Loki changes over the course of the movies. This Loki has not done that. He has not gone on this journey, so he would not be the same. And it is so unsatisfying too. The joy of a character journey is seeing them take on obstacles and overcome flaws both internally and externally, and it is usually done the best when they actually experience those things. Sitting a character down and having him watch that journey and just saying, now you are the same as the other version of you, is completely stupid and lame. It's as lame as having a cat scratch out Nick Fury's eye. So after that, B-15 comes into the room and Loki decides to have a fight. B-15 gets the upper hand at first, but finally Loki comes back and wraps the collar around her neck and makes hers disappear. He decides then to have some fun with her and time twist her all over the place. Now, I will say on an emotional level, I like this little bit a lot. First off, I think Loki would totally do something like this. This very much feels right in Loki's trickster nature. Also, I hate the TVA and how they ruin the MCU so much, so anytime Loki or other characters get to mess it up somehow, just fills me with delight. Anyway, after that, Loki sits down to contemplate life and Mobius comes in to hear it. Loki realizes he can't go back to his timeline and that he doesn't enjoy hurting people, and that he does it because it is the cruel, elaborate trick conjured by him to inspire fear. Now, half of this statement is okay. The MCU timeline has shown that Loki has always felt like everyone looks down on him, and that he was a shadow in the vast of someone else's glory, and that he wants to be seen as powerful and wants to be seen as a ruler. But what does not line up is him saying he doesn't enjoy hurting people. He says it in a way like that hurting people gets to him. That doesn't make any sense at all and isn't supported by his journey in the main timeline up to this point. The best you can maybe say is that he doesn't want to hurt a very few certain specific amount of people, like maybe his mother or potentially his brother, because his mother's death does affect him in the MCU timeline, but all events before this has shown Loki to either do get some enjoyment out of it or just not caring at all, and that applies to the later films like Ragnarok. I mean, earlier in this episode, Mobius was teasing Loki saying he enjoyed taking out that guy's eyeball. He slaughtered a bunch of men in the beginning of Avengers. He straight up killed Coulson. You can't say he doesn't enjoy doing it. At best, you can say he doesn't care in some instances. But I mean, his expressions in these scenes say otherwise. Again, him saying that he does this because he wants to be powerful and seen as a ruler, yes, that is in line with his character at this point. But him saying he doesn't enjoy hurting people isn't supported at all at this point. Also, this scene is, again, a little too soon. This should have been something more drawn out, played with, developed over the season rather than just shoehorning it in the first episode. I feel like this should have been built up and paid off more satisfactorily. Anyway, after that, Mobius tells Loki that a fugitive variant has been killing their men and wants Loki's help to stop him. Also, he reveals that the variant is another version of Loki. We then go to Selena in 1858, where some time cops are investigating a Nexus event to find something out of place. One of them notices oil on the floor and is not at all concerned of it in any way. He says to just prune the timeline and bail out of there, but then one of the officers sees a figure in the distance. They go to check it out, but the figure drops a lantern and sets the oil ablaze, killing them all. Then the Loki variant takes the reset charge and the episode ends. So now I must say what the worst offense of this first episode is, confirming that free will does not exist in the MCU and that all the drama in the past films are now basically voided. Everything that has happened from at least the first Iron Man up to Avengers Endgame, possibly further films than that, was not because of decisions they made. It is because the Time Lords, or Kang, wanted it to happen. Everything was his doing and never the characters' doing at all. Nothing our characters did in the films had any consequences because their choices weren't theirs. It was Kang. If all those people made a different decision than what originally happened, the TVA would have came in, pruned them, and reset it to do it again. No choices have consequences because it all has to go one way and they will reset the timeline until it goes that way. Having a character make a choice and seeing the consequence of that choice is a huge part of what intrigues an audience into a drama. But now that we know that our characters have no choices at all and that nothing they do really matters, then there is kinda no point to the story, is there? Don't you see? The drama's just basically gone now. The tension is removed. Nothing our characters did and said mattered, because if they did anything outside of what was supposed to happen, they would have been pruned. Nice to know that everything that happened was because of this guy, and not anything that any one of the beloved characters did. It's so frickin' lame. Alright, let's move on to episode 2, shall we? We begin episode 2 at some festival in Oshkosh in 1985. A bunch of time Nazis step through to find a variant that has triggered their alarms. Someone notices the officers and asks why they aren't in costume, ruining the experience. Well, guess they are gonna have to kill this lady now. She can't know about the TVA. Wouldn't her knowing about the TVA create a Nexus event? They go into a tent to examine the anomaly and get their asses handed to them by Loki. We have already discussed why this shouldn't happen because of the insane power levels the TVA should have, but for some reason doesn't. Also, the action here, the actual fighting action, is pretty pathetic. I mean, the choreography is very poor and the officers are pretty dang stupid. Oh wow, you can just stab them through the vest? What is the point of wearing that little vest if it can't protect you from a candy cane frickin' stick? Anyway, Variant Loki here decides to take C-20 with him. We then see Loki talking with Miss Minutes. Now this scene in isolation, out of context, I kinda like, because Loki talks and acts sorta like the way I would expect him to talk and act, being a bit sarcastic, commenting how stupid this is, taking a swipe at Miss Minutes. I like that. But there is one thing we must mention, the comment Miss Minutes makes.
What happens when a Nexus event branches past red line?
It's when the TVA can no longer reset a Nexus event.
Right, and that that would lead to the destruction of the timeline and the collapse of reality as we know it.
BS. When the multiversal war started, there were no doubt millions of branches past Redline, because Kangi here took over the timeline after the multiversal war. He wasn't there since the beginning of time. He came in when the multiversal war started to end it. And that was in the 31st century, 1,000 years from now, based on the current time that this show takes place in. So the timeline was in utter chaos before then, anyone doing what they want, which means timeline branching galore, and there is no doubt they were already past quote-unquote red line. So he somehow can reset it, meaning the red line doesn't matter. Maybe the TVA time resetter things can't reset something past red line, but Kangi certainly can. So there aren't any stakes at all, because he can just make it all go away. Mobius comes in and tells Loki to suit up in the jacket because there has been an attack. He and Mobius join a bunch of other time fascists for a briefing. And I just want to point out here that for those people who believe in the whole branching past redline garbage, they are taking quite a bit of time to do this stuff. And while that is happening and they're going through this briefing, the branch is getting closer to that red line. Might want to pick up the pace here, guys. The branch is going to redline. You can't reset it past then. Anyway, during the briefing, we get some more stupid cosmic relief. Haha, cosmic. And then finally, the briefing ends, and Loki asks them if they are not concerned about him getting his powers back and betraying them. Mobius says no, because they will know where he is all the time and catch him again. Okay, yeah, but like, Mobius, you know Loki could kill any of you, even if his escape attempt fails? Are none of you guys concerned with, dying at all? Do any of you want to stay alive? Yes, again, you may be able to catch him, but he could hurt or kill any of you in the process of trying to escape. Even if he does fail, I mean, some of you could die. It's called minimizing potential casualties. It's usually a good thing. Oh wait, Mobius, I have an even better idea. Why don't you just put the Time Twister collar on him, you dummy? Just in case he tries anything, you can just keep him in his place and keep him from going anywhere and doing anything you don't want him to with that thing. Just as a precaution. I guess the TVA think that Loki is so pathetic that they don't need to take the precaution. How nice. Anyway, they walk through the portal thing, and Loki actually asks a very good question. Why don't they arrive before the attack to get the upper hand? And Mobius answers him with this.
Nexus events destabilize the time flow. This branch is still changing and growing, so you gotta show up in real time.
Well, I'll give the show this credit. Out of all the stupid plot points that have been made, that so far is the most logical rule the TVA has said, even though it's not saying much so far. The officers and Loki entered the tent to see what has happened. Then B-15 tells them to fan out and search because the branch is approaching redline and they must reset it soon. Maybe you would have more time if you didn't spend so much time with that unnecessarily long briefing and goofing around. But Loki says they must stop because if they leave the tent, they will end up dead like the others. He starts to give a little spiel, which is kinda Loki-like, and I kinda appreciate. If the writers could have just taken the cringe and slight incompetencies displayed here, then this would have been a little better. But Mobius figures out he is lying and they decide to reset the timeline, which means that this lady here got sent to this area to be consumed by Goliath. Whoop-de-doo. Mobius meets with Judge Renslayer in her office to discuss trophies and Lokis, and Judge Renslayer says something I find very odd.
And why do you get to keep all the trophies from my cases in here?
Because I approve the missions.
Well, first of all, getting a trophy for approving a mission is kinda overkill. You just said, yes, the mission is approved, and you want to keep the trophy for just doing that? You didn't do anything. Mobius and the officers are all doing the work. Wrong person, guys. Wrong person. But the thing I find odder about this statement is when the hell does she not approve missions? Does approving or disproving a mission involve whether or not they fix a Nexus event? You can't disapprove that. If you do, the Nexus event branches are going to go until redline. How the hell does approving missions work here?
Is that possible? You can change?
Not unless the Timekeepers decree it.
Oh, fuck off with that. Unless the Timekeepers decree it. Don't remind me that the whole MCU has been destroyed and that everything is now meaningless, please. Please stop. Anyway, after the meeting, Mobius walks out the door and Loki does something extremely out of character.
You're probably wondering what happened out on the mission. That was your first lesson in catching a Loki. Expect the expected.
Oh my gosh, would you just shut up? This is just pathetic. This is something he wouldn't say. He should say something like, yeah, I lied to you to try to escape. Did you expect something else? Anyway, Mobius tells Loki that he has one last chance to help them or they will kill him. Mobius says that he needs Loki to look at all the files they have pertaining to Variant Loki and to see if he can come up with something and give his unique perspective. You know, for a super powerful bureaucracy like this TVA, and considering that most of the officials of the TVA are human, you would think Kang would supply like an easier, more efficient way to access files. I mean, look how big this place is. And it has to be ever expanding considering that they get new variants very frequently. What if I have to get a file all the way over there? Do I have to walk it? Why does Miss Minutes get a digital file system and no one else does? Look at all the paperwork. How does anything get organized? Just put it in a computer-based system for quicker access and retrieval. Okay, moving on. Loki goes up to a librarian and tries to get her attention. He says hello multiple times, but she doesn't respond to it. And the only way she responds is when he hits the bell. Why does she do this? Because the writers wanted this stupid, dumb joke that isn't funny. That's why. Loki asks for all the files regarding the creation of the TVA in the beginning and end of time, but those files are classified and he can only get certain stuff. He finally comes across in all this clutter of paperwork the reports on the destruction of Asgard, and Loki starts to tear up, because you know, Loki would totally care and totally cry about this, wouldn't he?
Yes, very sad. Anyway, it got me thinking.
Yes, very caring of his planet. Anyway, this document makes Loki have a revelation, and he goes to Mobius to talk to him about it. Here, Loki says that the variant is hiding in apocalyptic events. His reasoning is that if everything and everyone around you is destined to be completely destroyed, then you can do anything you want because the timeline gets destroyed and won't branch since everything gets destroyed. Yeah, no, that still makes no sense. Okay, let me explain my reasoning, alright? First off, later in this episode, Mobius says for this to work that the disasters must be naturally occurring, no warning, no survivors.
But in order for this theory to hold, the disasters have to be naturally occurring, sudden, no warning, no survivors.
So if that is the case, then Ragnarok wouldn't work, because a huge amount of Asgardians survived this apocalyptic event. And let's give another example, right? If Loki were to go down there and, say, do something that causes the death of someone who was supposed to escape and survive, then that would create a Nexus event, wouldn't it? Because somebody died who was supposed to live? So no, you can't do whatever you want. Let's take another example beyond that. Let's say Pompeii. The bodies of the victims were found in a very particular spots, right? So if Loki interferes, wouldn't the place of the bodies that were originally found be changed? If a body is not where it was supposed to be, wouldn't that not create a Nexus event? Again, we are going off the TVA standard that everything must go an exact certain way, and that if anything changes even slightly, it creates a Nexus event. The first episode said in its little animation video that you could do something as little as be late for work when you weren't supposed to, and that would create a branch. So by that metric, wouldn't the same apply for bodies being in the wrong place at Pompeii? Say Loki were to commit suicide, and he dies at Pompeii with the rest. When the humans discover his body, would that create a Nexus event? Because he wasn't supposed to die there, nor were they supposed to find a body of an Asgardian down in the rubble. Like if they dig up his body and find the TVA clothing on him, how would the history books change? This would have to create a Nexus event, so no, hiding in an apocalypse would not shield you, it makes no sense. So why does it work here? Because the script says it works, so just accept it. Anyway, after Loki tests his theory, which I will say, I did enjoy this scene in isolation. It is more along the lines of something Loki would do, and honestly it's kind of fun for him to basically just revel in destruction. Again, this scene in isolation is kind of fun. Anyway, after that, they do some research and have a talk. Nothing really honestly happens here besides mentioning of the Jet Ski magazine, which I don't know how Mobius got that. But other than that, not much is said here other than the conversation to remind Mobius of the scared little boy from episode 1 and the candy he took from the crime scene. Mobius shows Loki the candy, saying this was given probably by Variant Loki and that they can use it to cross-reference with apocalyptic events to find the location of Variant Loki. I don't know how the hell that is supposed to work. How the hell do you cross-reference an apocalyptic event with a candy? What, do the reports say if Kablooey was found in the rubble of an apocalyptic event? Why would that be written down in a report? Do they just write down all the things that were going to be destroyed in an apocalyptic event, including the candy? Oh, screw it. It isn't going to make any sense no matter which way we put it. After some searching, they find the location of Variant Loki. Don't ask how they did it. Mobius goes to Renslayer to convince her to approve the mission. She gives in and says yes for our little team of time fascists to head to Alabama in 2050 to find the variant. Once they get inside, Loki uses magic to dry himself off.
The hell was that?
How the hell do you not know that? Did you forget that this is Loki, god of mischief, who has powers? Do you not remember that he can use magic and illusions to do things? Also, Loki, since you have magic now, why don't you use it to, I don't know, conjure up some Asgardian armor? Maybe a knife? I know they have your favorite knives back at the TVA, but can't you just conjure up another pair, or just a random pair? You have to have more than just one pair of knives, come on. Or conjure up anything. Anything that you can use. Nothing? Okay, fine, whatever.
No?
You go with D90, he stays with me. My field op Mobius. If he's not a threat, then it won't be a problem.
Of course he's a threat.
Do you not remember the Time Theater?
Then put a frickin' time twister collar on him if you don't trust him at all, you idiot. Anyway, we see hooded Variant Loki is watching from the security office and knows the TVA are here. Then Variant Loki sets a timer for 20 minutes to activate the time charges she set up in the store. Why the hell doesn't she just activate those charges now, you ask? Because reasons. That's why. B-15 and Loki come across a guy shopping for plants in this storm and finally start to have some common sense in their minds for a brief moment, since who the hell would shop for plants in this weather?
What are you doing?
Shopping for plants.
In this storm.
B-15 approaches but then gets possessed and Variant Loki starts to have a chat with our main Loki. In the meantime, Mobius and the other officers find C-20, who looks like she just woke up from a nightmare and experiencing a big revelation. Her top-notch acting really shows it off, just so you know.
What's real?
It was real.
What's real?
Back to Loki, he offers Variant Loki a partnership to overthrow the Timekeepers and take control. But Variant Loki says no, that she is not interested in ruling them. Back to the security room with C-20, Mobius and the other officers are bewildered by her terrible acting. Mobius says to alert the infirmary, but C-20 resists, saying that she gave away the location of the Timekeepers and how to find them. What? Wait, what? Why the hell does she know that? How does she know that? Why does a random TVA officer know how to find the Timekeepers? Is this common knowledge across all the officers? That's a big hole in your security. Why is this information not as restricted as it should be and only allowed for higher-ups like Renslayer? This is very important, very crucial, very pivotal, very confidential information that could really screw up the TVA and get the secret out. Is this information for only certain officers to know? Because if that is the case, then it is super coincidental and convenient that Variant Loki took the only one who knew this information of where the Timekeepers are. Why the hell do conveniences like this happen all the time? Oh yeah, I forget, it's all part of Kangi's plan. Now anytime anything is stupid, convenient, contradictory, or whatever, anyone can just pull out the "it was all part of Kang's plan, that's why it is stupid" argument.
That's the gambit!
Anyway, back to Loki, he finally figures out what the Variant Loki's plan is, but not before getting a surprise attack from Big Brutus here.
Thank you for helping me stall for time.
Well, Variant Loki, maybe you wouldn't have to have stalled for time if you set the initial timer to say maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes, or maybe frickin' 0? What the hell were you stalling for anyway? What was your little setup not complete yet? All you did was attach one wire to one charge and connect this tempad. That is it. You don't need 20 minutes to do that. Would have taken you 2 to 3 minutes tops. Or I know, enchant one of the officers like B-15, pretend she is still in control, tell Loki to go find Mobius and do whatever, and then do your 2 little tasks. Activate the device, hook up the wire, and boom, you're all done. You didn't need to set it up for 20 minutes, you just did because the writers needed more time to fill the episode with stupid shit. Oh, but wait for it. That's not even the biggest problem here. The bigger problem is, why the hell is Loki getting his ass whooped by a frickin' human? He's a frost giant and Asgardian and the god of mischief, a character who in Avengers took on Captain America and freaking Thor. He could throw Iron Man out a window really freaking hard. He has the ability to take on some of the Avengers, and here he can't even overpower this doofus of a human? Why isn't he using his powers at all? He has his magic now. There is no time collar restrictions or anything. He has complete access to his magic and he just doesn't use it. Now some people may give the argument of, no, it's not human strength. When Sylvie possesses someone, she enchants her own strength into that person. Well, we don't know that for sure. It's never explicitly said. As far as what we know about the enchantment powers of female Loki, that is it. It is just enchantment. It doesn't increase the subject's strengths or allow Sylvie to use her powers through the subject she is possessing. All it does is allow her to take control of the body. That is it. The only power we know she has while possessing someone is for her to possess someone else. And to those who want to defend this, saying that she can use all her abilities through any subject she possesses, then why doesn't she use it at all during this fight? Throughout this entire fight, she doesn't use a single power. There is no reason for her not to. So because the people she is enchanting never use any of her powers, I am going to assume she can't use her magic or strength through an individual she is possessing. And since it is confirmed Loki is super strong enough to fight the god of thunder, Thor, he should be able to kick this guy's ass no problem. And he doesn't use any magic because he, like everyone else involved with this show, is an idiot and incompetent buffoon. Anyway, after this terrible fight, Sylvie reveals herself to be Woman Loki finally. Dun Dun dun! Then her little device is activated and sends a bunch of armed charges to random places and random points in the timeline. Which means Sylvie just pruned a bunch of innocent people or objects like the TVA does, so yay, she is exactly as evil as them. Back at the TVA, the timeline is branching out at rapid paces and places, and the workers are freaking the hell out. The officers suit up and go out to fix the pruned timelines, which I don't know what they're going to do. Timelines just got pruned, so are they going to unprune them? Do they have an unpruning feature on their glow sticks? Who knows? Lady Loki takes the tempad and opens a gateway and walks through. And Loki just stands there, watching and just, not doing anything. But what's even more convenient is that the gateway portal thingy doesn't close once Sylvie walks through it. It just stays open. What? Does she want him to follow her? Why is this still open? Doesn't Sylvie want to close it to make sure that nobody follows her? Oh wait, no, I get it. We need it to stay open because the script says it needs to stay open even though it makes no sense. We need Loki to follow her to continue the story, damn it. Anyway, Loki decides to take this opportunity to walk through. Owen Wilson says, wow, damn it, and that's the end of the episode. Thank God. Moving on to episode 3. We begin episode 3 inside the head of C-20. Sylvie is trying to get the information of the Timekeeper's location and who guards them by trying to access memories, or some shit. She asks C-20 where the elevator to the Timekeepers are, and C-20 says, gold. Well, that really narrows it down, doesn't it? The only elevators that aren't gold at the TVA are none. So finding them should be easy. Anyway, jump to the place where we left off last episode, and Sylvia arrives at the TVA just as the last of the officers run to the door to the side of her. Very convenient so that she wouldn't be seen. It's all part of Kangi's grand plan. She starts to make her way to the elevator, but not before running into some officers. Geez, maybe if the TVA just had an army of Minimen comprised of variants of other stronger species, like, I don't know, Captain America, Thanos, Drax, or whoever, then maybe this army wouldn't be so shit. Why did Kangi comprise his little officer force to be just humans? So that Sylvie could easily beat them up and get to him? No, don't worry, it's all part of the plan. Kangi's super masterful, perfect plan. Oh hey, Loki showed up. Good thing that gateway didn't close right after Sylvie walked through, otherwise this wouldn't have happened. Timing! He takes his knives and starts to catch up to Sylvie. At least he did something somewhat competent, grab a weapon. He finds Sylvie and they have a brawl, but not before Renslayer finds them and tempts Sylvie to kill Loki. Loki grabs the tempad and portals their way out of there. Good thing that portal just so happened to randomly open beneath them and that Loki just knew how to do that in 2 seconds. Otherwise they would have been pruned and story over. They land on a bed and fight for the tempad. Sylvie eventually gets it, but not before realizing it is out of juice. This makes her mad and she draws her sword to stab. Whoa! Oh wow, powers that he is using now for some reason. Where were these powers in your first fight, you dumbass? Loki makes the tempad disappear and says that he will do the same to Sylvie, but the fight gets interrupted by a meteor crashing through the ceiling. Sylvie realizes they have been transported to Lamentis 1, which is the worst apocalyptic event on the tempad. Wow. Very coincidental that Loki chose that one. This apocalyptic event consists of a moon crashing into the planet and destroying it, killing everyone on it. They run through the field, dodging the fireballs and meteors, and make it inside a structure for safety. Which, I don't know why that matters. The meteors will still penetrate the roof, but I guess they just think, oh, it's safe. Sylvie smirks and tries to enchant Loki.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Cringe! They yell and fight with each other and basically decide they are gonna have to work together because neither of them will get off the rock without the other. Sylvie says that they need to charge the tempad with a power source to get it working. Once that happens, she will finish what she started and take down the TVA. So they get out of the enclosure, out of the pit, somehow. They somehow get up there. Maybe they just teleported. And Loki starts to have a conversation with Sylvie. I hope you like that, because this episode is a lot of them walking and talking about things that really don't advance the plot or any character development. Although they do say some things that I find just hilarious.
What exactly makes a Loki a Loki?
Independence, authority, style.
Yeah, and for some reason you lost all 3 of those characteristics in this show. What happened to you?
Create the ultimate power vacuum and then just walk away. I'd never have done that.
Yeah, there are many things you would have never done, Loki, but do in this show anyway. Moving on, they come across a small town and Loki points to a neon light asking if it would charge the pad, but Sylvie says it needs a massive power source to charge it. So they come across a farm for no reason after that. I mean, she says it needs a massive power source, so is this farm supposed to have enough power? How does that work? What does this farm have that the other buildings don't? Why are they wanting to break in? What is in here that they need? They never even say why they are entering or why they are coming into this place. Sylvie breaks down the door but gets blasted by the woman at the doorway who looks to have been sitting there for God knows how long. Yeah, why is she doing this? How long has she been there? Why does it matter? The end of the world is coming. The whole planet is going to be annihilated and everything and everyone in it is going to be destroyed. Why is she trying to protect your house? Screw it, lady. You're going to frickin' die in a few hours. I find this to be somewhat stupid. But don't worry, that somewhat stupidity will be overshadowed by pure stupidity with what Loki's about to do. Loki tries diplomacy and assures the lady that they mean no harm, but of course she doesn't buy it. So Loki looks inside and sees a photo of presumably her husband, and Loki decides to take on his form and try to imitate him. Okay, this plan is beyond retarded. My brain cannot handle the level of stupidity that is happening right now. Firstly, Loki, you talked to the woman in your normal voice just a second ago. Sure, she didn't see you, but she heard your voice. She knows you're not someone she knows, so when you come out of the corner, this makes the situation all the more suspicious and unnerving. That's like the equivalent of someone robbing a bank without their mask and putting the mask on after they commit the robbery. Secondly, you know nothing about this man you are imitating. You don't know what he is like, the kind of relations that they have, what she is like, nothing. So you trying to imitate him would never work in the first place because you don't even know who you are trying to imitate. This is by far one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in this show. So of course, after this stupid plan, Loki gets blasted and Sylvie rightly makes fun of him, which I actually do like. Yeah, do ridicule him for that. That was a stupid plan. The lady comes out and asks what the hell do they want? Sylvie replies saying they want to know where is everyone. Well, if that was the reason you two came to this house in the first place, I don't know why you would freaking kick down a door to ask a question. Who does that? Just wapoom. Hey, I got a question for you. The lady says that everyone is headed up to the Ark to get off the planet and that they can get there by train. So both Lokis head in that direction. When they get to the train station, they try to think of a plan to get on because it appears the guards only let the wealthy people on, or the people who have a ticket. So Sylvie suggests enchanting a guard to get them on board, but Loki changes it up by being the guard himself. Good thing that no one in this crowd saw them just change his costume right here in public, otherwise that might bring unwanted attention to him from the other guards. So Loki starts to bring Sylvie on the train, and the extras in the crowd throw out a small message of classism. Also, notice that Loki is just holding Sylvie's left arm, and not the right arm. That's not a convincing look that you have that subject detained. There is a reason for handcuffs, you know. Anyway, before they get on the train, the guard stops them saying they need a ticket, but Sylvie enchants the guard and convinces the other guard that they are allowed to get on the train. The guard says it's okay and lets them pass. So they sit down and talk about their feelings and stuff. There is nothing inherently wrong with this scene in terms of continuity, logic, or whatever, but it just kind of goes on for a while. A lot of people found this boring, and I can understand that, but I personally found it just kind of whatever. There were a few things in the conversation, very few, that I think gave some decent information regarding character, while the rest just kind of feels like filler. But there is something to talk about in this conversation, and that is this part.
How about you? Must have been would-be princesses? Or perhaps another prince?
A bit of both.
Oh my gosh, Loki is bi! Hallelujah! The happiest and greatest day in the history of the universe is here. Loki is bi! Okay, on a serious note though, why is this moment being praised to the high heavens? I don't really care about this at all, but why does everyone else praise it like it's the greatest accomplishment ever in cinema? When this episode released for the first time, the writer Kate Herron went to Twitter to say this: "From the moment I joined Loki Official, it was very important to me, and my goal, to acknowledge Loki was bisexual. It is part of who he is and who I am too. I know this is a small step, but I'm happy and heart is so full to say that this is now canon in the MCU. Hey Kate, you know what I would like an important goal of yours to be? To tell a good story. That would be a great priority to have rather than make a 10-second nod that a character is bi. And the weird thing is that the audience eats it up like it is the greatest accomplishment in cinema ever. Are you serious? Again, I'm going to say, I do not care about the sexual orientation of a character. I do not care because it is so inconsequential to the rest of the story. And in terms of this story, it is pretty inconsequential. It is never brought up in this show ever again and has no meaning to the story whatsoever, so this is just a throwaway line. Secondly, the only reason this is thrown in here is to 1, please the people who fall for it so easily, but 2, so that they can take this small scene out for countries that do not approve of any homosexuality. like China. Disney doesn't care, people. They will cuck and pander to any country's morals for their money. That is how it works. And lastly, out of all pieces of media to praise for acknowledging someone's sexuality, why this? This isn't new. Putting gay or bi or other sexual orientation characters in media has been going on for the last decade, or even longer than that. And there are other pieces of media that are more worthy of this praise. Owl House. Because they incorporate it into their story and it's a trait of the character rather than just a throwaway line. How about we hire writers whose priority it is to tell the best and most well-written story they can? This isn't the first character in a major show to be bi, trans, gay, whatever. And it definitely won't be the last. Making a character bi is not something to praise a writer to high heaven for doing as if it is so difficult to do. It isn't hard. So to conclude this point, can we please have the priority of the writers to be to tell the best story they can rather than praising them for having a throwaway line that acknowledges Loki being bi or any other character being bi? Please? Thanks. So after they have a conversation on what love is, because that is what is going to happen between these two obviously, can't you tell? They both decide to relax. Sylvie falls asleep and finds Loki yodeling with the train passengers in their cabin. Sylvie makes a decent point actually to Loki that he is out of his uniform. But what I find more odd is why Loki is letting his guard down so much, especially since he was making a point earlier that it would be terrible to fight all the guards on the train and that it wouldn't be a good idea.
We can't fight our way onto that train. And then what? Kill every guard and hijack the train.
I guess Loki just doesn't care anymore for no reason. Anyway, Sylvie grabs him to bring attention to the fact that he is drunk and making a scene, but Loki responds saying it doesn't matter because it's the end of the world. But oh no, the guards come in wanting to see their tickets and then a fight breaks out. Oh, hey look, Loki is a competent fighter again. Finally, I was thinking was going to be gone forever. Oh, never mind. So Loki stupidly gets thrown out and Sylvie has to follow. They both end up on the ground and Sylvie has had enough and commands Loki to give her the temp pad. But Sylvie lets out a scream of frustration and has a sit-down upset about the situation. Loki sits next to her and gives an idea that they should hijack the Ark since in history they were not supposed to be on it and it may give them a chance. Sylvie agrees and they walk towards the Ark. You might have had more time if you weren't stupidly thrown out of the train, Loki. So as they walk, Loki asks Sylvie how she is able to enchant someone. Sylvie says that she has to make a physical contact, and to keep the connection active, she must make a fantasy from their memories so that the subject doesn't detect intrusion. She brings up that she used this on C20 to take hold of her and used a memory before she worked for the TVA. This is where we find out that everyone who is a worker at the TVA was not created by the Timekeepers, but taken because they are variants and having their minds wiped to serve the Timekeepers. This raises a whole bunch of questions, but we will address those in the later episodes when it is brought up again. To get back on track, they arrive at the town and they are going to overtake the Ark, but Loki makes an interesting observation that all these people are going to die, and he seems to be sympathetic. Just a heads up, it is not in Loki's character to care about people he doesn't know, because just a few days ago he killed 80 people in 2 days, and in the rest of the MCU he was never a sympathetic or caring person to anyone really, except maybe his brother, mother, and that's about it. He's never had sympathy or any sense of care for random people. I'm not saying he can't end up that way through a story, or that there aren't people he may potentially end up caring for, but there is no development of this. He just starts caring for people right away for some reason, and there has been nothing in this story that has led him to inheriting or gaining this trait. It just happens for no reason. This is not in his character. Loki would not say this. At least not yet, and definitely not now. I do not know what the writers think the character of Loki is. Kicking on, Sylvie says they should go around and try to get on the Ark and have to run through complete chaos and utter destruction. They pause quite a few times, even though they are on the tight clock and you think they would try to go faster. But no, it is all part of this very impressive one-take sequence. While they are running, a building gets hit by a meteor and starts to fall. But Loki frickin' uses telekinesis to lift the whole frickin' building? What? Are you frickin' kidding me? Loki, where was this power in your first fight with Sylvie? Where was this power on the train? Where was this power anywhere? Did you just forget you could do it? Come on. Anyway, more chaos, destruction, then they don't make it to the Ark, it gets destroyed, and then the episode ends. Let us now move on to episode 4. We start episode 4 in a flashback on Sylvie's Asgard. She is just in the palace playing with random toys when the TVA comes in and tells her she's committed the crime of free will. They take her up, erase her toys, and Sylvie sees the TVA office for the first time. By the way, Sylvie's Nexus Event, we never figure out what it was. Maybe we'll get the answer in season 2. But until then, then, this is all we have. Also, by the way, they come across this guy who looks like he's having a heart attack and they don't do anything. Hey guys, we're going to need him alive. He has to be tried in court for 2 minutes. Anyway, Sylvie signs her Stephen King book, gets scanned, and put on trial. But not before she ferociously bites the officer's hand, steps on her foot, and escapes because no one does anything and everyone is a moron. She escapes just because no one actively tried to stop her. First of all, if a suspect can escape by biting your hand and stepping on your foot, you're not that strong of an officer, especially if they are a frickin' kid with no superpowers whatsoever. Secondly, Renslayer here doesn't do anything. She just looks down at her belt to notice her temp pad is missing, but she takes like 5 seconds to realize it for some reason. Like she needs more processing time to realize her temp pad's not on her belt. And when she sees that Sylvie has it, she just stands there and does nothing. She's looking at Sylvie like, no, don't you go in there, young lady. You better not go in there. You're going to be grounded if you do. Oh, she went in. Also, there are 2 guards at the stand, and they also just watch it happen and don't try to prevent her escaping because why? This is a joke of security. They just stand there and do nothing. Why do they stand there and do nothing, you ask? Because the stupid script written by the idiot's writer said so. Anyway, after that, Renslayer goes to see the timekeepers. I don't know why. Jumping ahead, she knows that these things are fake and such, so I have no idea why she is coming up here or doing this. I guess to keep the lie in line. She then goes to talk to Mobius, saying that the timekeepers are not happy and blame her for the variant almost getting to the timekeepers as well as letting her escape initially.
But they can't blame you.
Yes, they can, and I do as well. She just let her go initially. Look, there she is, just standing there and just watching Sylvie just escape with the temp pad. There's like 5 seconds here where Sylvie is just standing there. She doesn't even try to run after her. She's just like, I guess there's nothing I can do, I guess. This is totally Renslayer's fault, absolutely.
The variant was right here. What if she got to the timekeepers?
Well, maybe that would not happen, Renslayer, if how to get to the timekeepers was not told to any random officer that Sylvie can enchant like it has so in the beginning. Maybe this information should be as confidential and as little known so this exact thing wouldn't happen, wouldn't you think? Oh, I have a better idea. If some officers need to know where the timekeepers are, don't send them after variants that are potentially dangerous and can find this information out. So the information is not compromised. How about that? Ooh, I have an even better idea. Beef up security so that the entrance to the timekeepers is not something as super accessible as a fucking elevator. Think, guys, think! Anyway, Mobius says he wants access to C20 to find out what she meant when she said it was real, but Renslayer says that she died from basically going insane and that they can't access anything from her. So Renslayer says that their priority is to find the variants at all costs. We then go back to where Loki and Sylvie were last episode. Sylvie is sitting on a rock getting ready for the end of the world. Loki says he is sorry, which of course is very Loki-like to say he's sorry, and Sylvie basically recalls the entire opening we just saw, so it's basically redundant, and honestly, if you wanted to keep this scene, just cut out the beginning. Also, on a completely different side note, my cat just jumped into my lap, so if you hear any purring or any meows, that's not me. Back to the TVA, they search hard for the Lokis, and their new strategy is to use a magnified threshold which can detect Nexus events as small as someone stepping on the wrong leaf. No, I am not kidding, that is literally what they say.
And we should be setting off alarms if somebody steps on the wrong leaf.
That's right, guys. Now everyone in the fucking universe can get pruned and die a horrible death for committing the crime of stepping on the wrong leaf. This is insane! B-15 here also looks like she is getting a very bad case of revitalized memories. Oops, now we're jumping back to Lamentus. The place is about to go kablooey. Kablooey. Sylvie asks Loki if the fact that they are destined to always lose is what defines them, but Loki says that while they may lose, they do not die. And then Loki basically tells Sylvie how amazing she is. Anyway, Loki's nice comment makes Sylvie hold his arm, and that triggers a Nexus event? What? How? Why? When? Where? What? And why? Well, I guess that breaks the rule of you can do whatever you want in an apocalypse, but even more than that, what the hell triggered this event? Her holding Loki's hand? An invisible touch made visible? My guess is, and I think everyone interpreted that this is basically what happened, that their love triggered the Nexus event. Are you kidding me? Love triggered a Nexus event? Firstly, these two have known each other for a day, and they haven't been getting along that well up to this point. This moment here is the first genuine moment they ever had for each other at all. Everything up to this point, they have had bitter feelings towards each other and constantly criticizing, teasing, and trying to kill each other even. And now their love is so strong to the point it triggers a Nexus event? Really? You want to know why this triggered a Nexus event? You want to know the real reason why? The absolute canon reason? It isn't because it makes sense. And it isn't because it follows the rules or stakes as the show has set up. It is purely because the writers were in a corner and didn't know what to do. Two Lokis without a way out of an apocalypse. No temp pad, no other way off, and the TVA cannot find them because of when and where they are. So they just thought, oh, we will just make them have a love moment and that'll trigger it. Boom! Fantastic writing! Give them an Emmy! That is why this happened. A coincidental, convenient way out for our heroes so that the plot can move forward. So anyway, two magical gateways open up and our heroes are saved. They are now prisoners and each are taken to their own rooms. Mobius and Loki have the same go-arounds and stuff, but Mobius does make a comment worth criticizing.
Am I the god of self-sabotage, huh?
He's kind of an asshole and a bad friend.
Oh, fuck you, Mobius. You never were friends to begin with. You two were barely even partners. Look at this, guys. Friendship.
Enjoy killing.
I'll kill you.
What, like you did your mother?
Look, guys, this is friendship.
Because you know this variant is better than you, and you can't take it. And hey, if it doesn't work, I'll delete them myself.
Oh yes, totally a good friend would say that, threatening to kill them if they do not fall in line. Or how about this?
Don't be afraid to really lean into this work. Here's a good trick for you. Pretend your life depends on it.
Yeah, telling him to find out more about the Loki variant or you'll have him killed? That's totally friendship. All of this and more, according to Mobius, is a twisted definition of friendship. Why the hell would you think Loki would consider you his friend when making remarks and threats like this to him throughout the entire show? This must be Kate Herron's idea of friendship. Well, I mean, she does work in Hollywood, so... Anyway, Loki gets thrown in a time loop memory thingy where he cuts Sif's hair for funsies and she is not happy about it. So she walks up to him while calling him names, slaps him, tells him he will always be alone, then kicks him in the balls with a final punch to the face. This happens over... and over... and over again. Literally, the show is kicking itself in its own balls. So here's an interesting thought, right? This isn't a memory, it is a quote-unquote time cell. So this is on Asgard, legitimately. Also, this is a time loop that doesn't affect Loki, just everything and everyone else around him at best. And that time loop collar thingy on his neck, from what the show has told us, doesn't nullify powers. It just loops you back in time. So with that being said, right? Why doesn't Loki just leave? Sif's in the time loop, not him. He can just walk away. Or jump off the balcony or something. Like, he isn't stuck here. Like, why is he not trying to, leave at all? You may say, oh, the time loop collar will loop him back if he tries to escape. No, the time loop collar is controlled manually from what we have seen, not automatically. So unless someone is watching him and activating it anytime he tries to leave, this doesn't work. And again, why doesn't he try to leave? Why does he just stand there and take it in the balls countless times? Oh wait, why doesn't he just use magic to make himself vanish so Sif can't see him? So why doesn't he just use his powers at all? Or at least attempt to? Come on. Let me give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say he is stuck here for some miraculous reason. Why doesn't he try to escape? If you were in this situation, wouldn't you think he would try to escape, like getting off the balcony or going somewhere else? Why would you just stand here and just take it? Even if he does try the things I suggest and they do not work, it would still be better than what he does here. Because one, he is actually trying to do something than just stand there and take it in the balls. And two, it would answer the questions I have rather than leaving them unanswered and making Loki and this whole situation look stupid. Oh wait, no, I may be wrong. Loki looks like he's gonna try something. Let's see.
You are a reconstruction of a past event, created by the organization that controls all of time. Help me escape. Yeah?
Wow, what a great plan. That was totally going to work, you stupid fuck. Back in reality, Mobius visits Judge Renslayer to ask if, while Loki is getting kicked in the balls, he can interview the other variant. Renslayer categorically refuses, saying she is too dangerous and that no one will speak to her unless she says so. And by this time, if it isn't clear, it is now extremely obvious that Renslayer is hiding something.
I mean, if there's a mastermind here, I don't think it's Loki.
Good. Then he should be the easiest to break.
The fascist timekeepers, everyone, breaking people down just to prune them. B-15 asks if Loki said anything, and Mobius says that Loki told him the TVA is lying to him. And it is now made very clear that B-15 saw a memory from Sylvie's enchantment. Back to the stupid loop, Loki begs Sif to stop while saying a lot of other stupid things. That he is a horrible person, that he craves attention, and that he is scared to be alone. Character development, everyone. But now he realizes that he was wrong, a terrible person, and such and such and such. And what drove him to realize that? A journey that made sense? No. An experience that really challenged him? No, none of those things. He just needed a good hard kick in the balls to realize this. It's super effective. Could the writers have not found another more better way for this payoff to come about in a better setup, rather than just throwing him in a ball-kicking simulator to make him see the error of his ways? Could he have said this to someone else to make this more meaningful and someone more personal to Loki rather than Sif? Also, by the way, just throw in here, I know that the writer or composer or someone who worked on the set says that basically Loki and Sif slept together. But I am completely ignoring that because I do not believe that for a second. After this embarrassing moment, Mobius comes in and asks if he is ready to talk. If I was Loki, I'd use my magic right now to stab his ass. They go back to the interrogation room and more talking ensues that basically is what we have seen before. Nothing too noteworthy is said here, they just basically toy with each other, Mobius calling Loki a desperate cockroach, yada yada yada. But Mobius does ask Loki what caused the Nexus event on Lamentus. Okay, so firstly, how the hell would he know, Mobius? No one knows they did a Nexus event until the TVA comes in and takes them away for their crime. It could have been a multitude of things. What makes you think Loki is going to know? And why does Loki say it won't tell him? Loki doesn't know. It could have been any wrong decision they made along the way. Anyway, Loki says he won't tell Mobius anything, and Mobius decides to throw him back in the time loop to be kicked in the ball some more. Friendship! But Loki says to wait and tells Mobius that he was pulling the strings all along, that Sylvie came to him on Asgard long ago, and that she took him to one of her apocalypses, and that's how they hatched a plan. Loki says that something big will happen and that she will be disposed of after. Mobius replies saying she is already dead. Loki is stricken by the news but pretends to brush it off and not care about it. But Mobius sees in his eyes that he can detect he likes her. Yeah, you spend a day with each other arguing and bickering and you just fall in love the same day. Yeah, that's totally normal. What happened to the Loki that I knew from the first Avengers? Mobius tells him she is alive for now and Loki gives off a sigh of relief. Through their constant back and forth, Loki burst out finally yelling at Mobius that every one of the TVA is a variant, that the Timekeepers took them from the timeline and erased their memories, and that Sylvie can access them through enchantment. Except that isn't how erasing memories work. If they are completely erased, they cannot be accessed at all because they are gone. So the more proper term here would be that they make the memories dormant or something. Also, by the way, if I was writing this scene, I would have had Loki bring up to Mobius liking jet skis and how that may be connected to a past life he may have had before the TVA. You know, connecting things mentioned in previous episodes to the current episodes, making them more relevant. Sure, it may not have convinced him, but it would have been a nice thing to bring up in this moment and have a nice tie back to the plot point made earlier. But it doesn't matter because Mobius of course does not believe Loki and says he doesn't need him anymore and decides to put Loki back in the time cell. Well, if you don't need him anymore, then why are you keeping him alive in the cell? Just prune him already. But no, we can't do that. The script says Loki needs to stay around for the next scene. B-15 here looks to be having PTSD and goes into Sylvie's chamber to get answers. She opens a gateway and tells Sylvie to come with her. But before we continue with that plot line, we go to Judge Renslayer's office and Mobius and Renslayer both sign the paper to say the case is officially closed and raise a toast. But something is on Mobius's mind. He asks Renslayer why she wouldn't let him talk to Sylvie, and she says because she couldn't risk her escaping again, which is just a stupid reply, but whatever. She also mentions that the Timekeepers want to see the pruning personally of the variant and wants Mobius to be there. Mobius says great and moves on to talking about C20 and what happened to her. Again, Renslayer gives a bad excuse of saying she is trying to protect him. Oh my gosh, that is one of the most cliched lines ever. Whenever someone asks a question and the guy replies, "I'm trying to protect you." It's so overused. She also says she doesn't want to see Mobius go crazy like C20 and that what they do is important for the sake of the sacred timeline. Also, listen to this.
You've seen all of existence, same as me, so you know.
But yet some of your people don't know what a fish is. LOL. Mobius asks what he plans to do with Sylvie's sword. Renslayer takes it up to find a spot on the shelf, and while she is doing this, Mobius switches his TAMPAD for hers. He then takes his leave and walks out of the room. Back to Sylvie and B-15, they go to Roxcart again to talk in private since it is an apocalyptic event and they can't be detected there. Hopefully. B-15 says she saw something and wants to know what Sylvie did. Sylvie explains they were all kidnapped by the Timekeepers and that they are all variants. B-15 holds out her hand for Sylvie to show her memories from her past. Well, for someone who wasn't trusting of Loki's and has no reason to, B-15 is quite suddenly trustworthy now after seeing some vision. Is that really enough for you to trust Sylvie, who has created problems for you this whole time and killed your Minutemen? And now you just suddenly trust her because you saw a quick vision? You don't want to take some precautions if you're going to try this experiment of her enchanting you? Really? Okay. So anyway, basically after this, B-15 is now on Team Sylvie and Loki. Back to Mobius, he is in the library in a random hallway and accesses Renslayer's TAMPAD. He finds a recording of an interrogation of C20. C20 is repeating the same stuff, that what she saw was real, that it was a memory of what she saw, and that she lived on Earth and had friends, that she was on a timeline, and that she is a variant. We also see that Renslayer was at the interrogation before her death. Dun 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 dun! Okay, so two things here. Firstly, you notice that Mobius was looking over his shoulder to make sure that no one was watching him. Hey Mobius, I have an idea, you dumbass. How about you watch that thing in a more private place than a frickin' public library? Like, I don't know, maybe your office, so that you don't have to worry about someone catching you? You know, like anyone would in a public place like this? Secondly, why the hell was this recorded? What is the point of this? Why would anyone need to access this record? What was the point of keeping this recording on her tempad? Why would Renslayer want to keep it? If you want to keep this secret as much as possible, maybe delete it? Like, I don't get this at all. The only reason that it is still on the tempad is so Mobius can find out to advance the plot. Speaking of, he goes to Loki's time loop and Loki has gotten kicked in the balls God knows how many times by this point.
Because the Nexus event the two of you caused, I think whatever that connection is can bring this whole place down.
Oh, yay, their love for each other created a branch. It is confirmed them staring into each other's eyes created a Nexus event. A love so strong that was formed in less than a day and they barely know each other and trust each other in the first place. Give this relationship a place among all the other fantastic romantic relationships that Marvel has done so well.
So I just have to trust the word of two Lokis?
How about the word of a friend?
Yeah, such a great friendship you had so far.
You can be whoever, whatever you want to be.
Yeah, like the Loki we all know and love. Mischievous, cunning, kinda cool. Can you be that Loki you once were? Please?
Whatever you want to be. Even someone good.
Oh, fuck off. They go back to the interrogation room, but oh no, Renslayer's there with officers and takes her tempad back. Mobius tells her he finally knows where he would want to go, back to where he is actually from and ride his jet ski. Honestly, by the actual end of the series, no matter how many seasons it goes on, Mobius better be riding a jet ski. But until then, oh no, sad day, Mobius gets pruned. Actually, you know what? I'm kinda glad he was, since he's been an asshole all this time to Loki. Loki is taken to the elevator along with Sylvie and has a call be put out for B-15 being compromised. Renslayer takes them by herself to the elevator with a single time twister. In the elevator, Sylvie asks Renslayer what her Nexus event was, but Renslayer doesn't remember. The door opens and lo behold, it is the gracious timekeepers. And by the way, you can tell that these terrible CGI twerps are not the real timekeepers. Seriously, even on first watch I knew from how terrible they look and move that they were not going to be the real deal. But anyway, the timekeepers are so disappointed with the variants because they dare make a choice that they do not like. Aw, boo-hoo, timekeepers. What do you want the Lokis to say to you? Sorry? Sorry I made a choice of my own free will. Please don't kill me, elder gods. What would anyone else say in this stupid situation? Also, these timekeepers' voices are very bad, weird, and I can't understand them. Oh well, the timekeepers say to delete the Lokis, but B-15 comes in to save the day. She releases their time colors, says a line of dialogue, throws Sylvie a sword, and in the meantime, what do the 4 guards in the room do? Nothing. Yep, they just stand there and let it happen because the script says so, or Kang says so, or stupidity says so. Yep, while B-15 is rescuing them during all this, the guards just pose in a position and just do nothing. They don't run after them, they don't try to stop her from throwing the sword or from releasing their time colors. Nope, they just stand there and whoop-de-doo, it just happens to work out. Also, guards, you're holding your sticks the wrong way. How frickin' stupid are you? That side is to prune, the glowing one. How can you miss that? Anyway, B-15 gets knocked out pretty fucking easily. Renslayer as well. The other guards die, and so do the timekeepers. Yep, they are fake. Mindless androids, probably written into the script to excuse the bad CGI. Also, there are so many implications that can be dived into this. Freaking Sylvie is the first person to expose the timekeepers. Or wait, was it Renslayer? If Renslayer knows the timekeepers are just androids, then wouldn't you want more security to prevent that from being found out than the 4 guards? Especially if a freaking sword is enough to destroy the android. Also, why didn't Kangi here use better equipment to build the bots? He is from the 31st century, and 1,000 years ago, the Iron Man suit was developed. You know, the one that is bulletproof and can withstand an unbelievable amount of weaponry, even a frickin' Infinity Stone. But no, it's okay though, it's all part of Kang's glorious, purposeful, meaningful plan. Anyway, after this revelation, Sylvie and Loki are in distraught. But Loki says they will figure it out this time because, oh god. Oh no, don't have a love of confession. Oh god, this is gonna be cringe as hell. I'll get a mega stop. Yes! Oh, thank goodness. Oh, thanks for stopping that scene, Renslayer. You actually did something I like for once. You get 0.5 points to Slytherin for that. Anyway, Sylvie disarms her. Renslayer says to prune her, but she says, no, you are going to tell me everything. And finally, episode 4 is done. Oh, and by the way, after credit scene featuring 3 Lokis, lol. Haha, Crocky, haha, Crocky. We begin the episode with more questions raised by the introduction of this world. This world apparently looks to be apocalyptic, full of destroyed structures and overgrown areas. What is this place? What is that fart cloud? And who are these people?
This is the void, that's Goliath, and we're his lunch. Come on!
Great to know. We jump to Sylvie, who has Renslayer under her feet. She asks who is behind the TVA, but Renslayer says she doesn't know at all. Sylvie then decides to take her life in the same room she escaped in, but Renslayer says that Loki is not dead but alive and that they want the same thing to find out who is at the top. Renslayer also explains that when a reality is pruned, that not all of its matter can be destroyed, so therefore they really can't stop it from growing. So they move it to a place where it won't grow at a void at the end of time, where every instance of existence collides at the same point and stops. What is it you even said, Renslayer?
Why? I don't know.
Oh, thanks for that. Renslayer finishes saying that she can help Sylvie if she trusts her. Of course, Sylvie has no reason to trust Renslayer, but she does so anyway. Back to that same void, Loki is fed up with the other Loki's plan of being don't die and finally yells out what's going on.
Will someone please explain to me what the hell is going on?
I know, Loki. I know. I wish I could comfort you with the answers, but the writers gave us none because they don't want us to think about these things. But heck, I'll have a point to the show. I do kind of like this little outburst. But anyway, Loki's confusion and frustration is signaling Alioth, so Kid Loki shuts Loki up. They explain that this is where the TVA sends everything they prune, and that Alioth is a living tempest that consumes matter and energy, and that all branches' realities are sent here and are devoured by Alioth. Well, it's good to know that the branch reality of the Avengers where Loki escaped from were sent here and consumed. Those Avengers died a horrific death at the hands of the TVA. Also, Loki actually asks a really good question. Why are there so many Lokis and not so many different other beings?
Because Loki survive. That's just what we do.
Are you fucking kidding me? Lokis are the only ones who survive here just because they are Loki? Are you telling me that the Far Cloud has consumed every living thing that has been transported here except for Lokis? Bullshit! There is no way that Lokis are the only things alive here. What about Iron Man? Or I don't know, Thanos? They have had to have pruned a Thanos before. You're telling me Thanos got consumed by the Fart Cloud and this cartoon didn't? They had to have pruned a Thor before if there's an infinite amount of multiverses to keep track of. Especially considering that they had pruned the reality where Loki escaped from in episode 1, right? He couldn't escape Alioth, are you kidding me? This is just pure BS. And don't worry, we will talk about that stupid Fart Cloud later in this review. Moving on, Loki asks why Kid Loki is giving all the orders around here. And Grant Loki says because this is his kingdom. Loki asks what did he do to get arrested and he says,
I killed Thor.
Thanks for making our main character look even more pathetic than he is now. Also, what kingdom, bro? Yeah, some very nice grass and trees to rule. All vegetation, bow before this child, bow before the great Loki. They come across their hideout, which is basically a basement in the ground. And also we see a Thor in the jar, and for some reason he can't get out. LOL. Back at the TVA, Renslayer gets minutes to access the restricted archives of the TVA pertaining to the beginning of time. Wait, you could just access that at any point? Why didn't you then? Did you even try in the first place? Only now did you think of this? Oh, for goodness sake. But Sylvie says she wants files at the end of time. Sylvie reasons that if she were to go there, she also wouldn't create a Nexus Event or be detectable because that part has not been written in stone yet. Renslayer says though that they can't go there because the temp pad can't lock onto a place in time. Sylvie says they go through it and Renslayer says it's suicide. Ms. Minutes butts in saying they have a prototype Voyage spacecraft that could potentially fly through it and reach the end of time. Renslayer extends her hand to shake as a deal to kill the man behind the curtain. But oh no, Renslayer betrayed Sylvie. What a shock. I don't even know what Renslayer's motivation is here. We don't know anything about her or why she is doing what she is doing, so the drama here is kinda non-existent. She just basically moves the plot forward. Now Sylvie is surrounded by the guards and Renslayer tells her to surrender, so Sylvie decides to make a great plan and just prune herself. I mean, okay, I don't know why you did that, Sylvie. There's only like 5 people in the room, and you took out an equal amount of those when you were infiltrating in the first place before. You don't want to at least try? If your plan was to prune yourself, just like try to escape, and if you get pruned, so be it. Back to the Void, the Lokis are exchanging stories about their timelines. We also find out that Crocky's Nexus Event was eating the wrong neighbor's cat. Wow, and I'm just sitting here thinking, how does a croc eating a cat lead to a multiversal war? Hugh Grant Loki here escaped Thanos' grasp by disguising himself as debris and drifted into space for a while. He decided that only pain followed him wherever he went and that he would live a life of isolation and solitude. But he got lonely and missed his brother and wondered if anyone missed him, so he decided to get off the planet, but that choice was not part of Kangi's plan, so he was taken by the TVA. Grant Loki says that they only are to be outcast and nothing more, and is also hinting that Loki is not allowed to change. They cannot be good and the TVA won't allow them to be good. Which again is not my main problem. Again, I don't mind if Loki were to change to a good guy, but it must be natural. It must make sense, not rushed or forced like this show. It must be paced well and follow logically. What has happened to Loki to cause him to become more good? He met a girl a day ago he kinda likes. Oh wow, he just totally changes his ways after that? I mean, I don't think there's anything else in this story or this show that has caused Loki to want to become more good or just turn more good. Certainly, the TVA is not a reason for him to turn good. He hates the TVA and what it did to him. If anything, it should make him more villainous, not good. Mobius treated him like garbage, same with anyone else, so yeah, a girl he met a day ago is apparently enough for him to change all his ways and become a better person. Bullshit. Anyway, Loki says that he is going out to try to kill Alioth because screw it. He was gonna die anyway, so why not give it a try? The others just laugh at him, and Loki just decides to go without them. He opens the hatch above, and oh my goodness, a bunch of variant Lokis have found their secret hideout. We find Sylvie has landed on a random car in the void, and just right behind her, we see Alioth is coming in to try to consume her. But don't worry, she does something no one else has done before to try to escape the wrath of Alioth. Run. Yep. That's all she does. She just runs. That's it. Well, I mean, the Lokis before just walked away, so I guess walking can now match this cloud beast too. Also, she accidentally enchants it for a split second for the sake of the plot. Anyway, as she is running, lo behold, Mobius just happens to coincidentally show up just in the nick of time. Convenience all around that he was able to find her in this vast wasteland so quick and just in time for her to escape the fart cloud. Also, if you have a semi-decent condition pizza delivery car, you can outrun the fart cloud too. Yeah, why are we supposed to find Alioth scary or threatening again, if you can just outrun him with a pizza vehicle? Also, another quick point, why does this hideout matter? If Alioth consumes time, space, matter, energy, and such, then they can't hide anywhere. If Alioth finds them, he'll just eat through the dirt and stuff and get in. This isn't a safe place. This is just as unsafe as anywhere else. Anyway, we move on to all the Lokis coming in to take over the pathetic throne. Not much happens here besides Lokis betraying each other for comedic relief, so we are just gonna skip it. After they leave the Lokis to fight other Lokis, the Lokis say that they must go back to the TVA so they can stop all this. Grant Loki says that approaching Alioth is a death sentence, which of course isn't true. If you get too close, just outrun it like Sylvie did. Grant Loki says that they will only take Loki to Alioth, but not do anything else. Back off to Sylvie and Mobius, they talk about how bad each other is and how wrong each other were. You know, the same old conversation. Sylvie comes up with the plan to turn around and go back to the cloud. Mobius questions why the hell would they do that, and Sylvie says it may be the answer. That is it. And Mobius just accepts that answer with no question or hesitation. The cloud may be the answer, therefore turn back and possibly be consumed and die horrifically in it. Sylvie, don't you think you want to maybe think further on this? Like, I don't know, like what you will do once you get there? Like, how are you going to stop it? What will you do if you fail? Nope, nothing. This cloud may be the answer, therefore let's turn back and possibly get consumed by it. Back to Loki and the Lokis, they find an area where Alioth is going to be. A huge ship just got pruned and landed in the middle of a field. Alioth comes in and consumes everyone and everything. Well, he just kind of leaves the ship to rest or whatever. Also, Alioth seemed to have approached the ship very fast, like avalanche level of speed. Like he's coming in way faster than any normal person can run, but yet Sylvie in the previous scene is somehow able to outrun it. Loki decides they need a new plan, and just at that moment, Sylvie and Mobius show up. Sylvie concludes that they are all going after Alioth too, and wonders what their plan is.
We haven't decided how we're going to kill it, but
Sorry,
yeah.
come again. Kill it?
Yes, we're going to kill Alioth.
Oh my god, that was your plan. You all went along with it. I was having...
Oh my god, it's not like your plan is any better, you fucking bitch. Your plan is to walk up to it and enchant it with no fail-safes at all or any contingency if it doesn't work. You haven't thought of it more than Loki did. You know that if you touch it and you can't enchant it when you do, it's going to just consume you, right? You don't even know the anatomy of this thing, what it's physical or even if it is physical. Sylvie, can you stop degrading my Loki, please? He's had enough. You even admit later that you don't know if it will work.
Loki, I don't even know if this is gonna work.
I'm gonna enchant it.
Loki, I don't even know if this is gonna work.
They're just like, yeah, we'll just do what she says. Back at the TVA, Renslayer is talking to B-15, who is held in prison. Renslayer says that she betrayed the TVA and was disloyal. B-15 says that the timekeepers weren't real, and Renslayer responds with,
And why do you think that changes anything?
bitch, that changes everything. Why would she be loyal to her cause when she has found out her whole life and the cause was a lie? No sane person would ever stick to their cause if they found out it was all BS. Of course she is not going to be loyal, you stupid lump.
I want you to tell me what drives her.
Revenge drives her.
Renslayer, you should know by now that her being taken from her home, on the run, and you hunting her down like prey will create some tension inside of her and maybe some anger and frustration. What do you think is driving her? Renslayer leaves and asks Miss Menace to get her all the files on the foundings of the TVA. Back to the Void, the variant Lokis are having a conversation with Mobius about what they are gonna do while Sylvie and Loki are sitting together having a nice chat. They don't say anything here really of importance, just mostly BS like Mobius caring about Loki, that Sylvie and Loki's love for each other created the Nexus Event. But one thing of note...
How do I know that in the final moments you won't betray me?
I betrayed everyone who ever loved me, and that's not who I am anymore.
Such a good reassurance to Sylvie as well, right? How do I know you won't betray us? Oh, that isn't who I am anymore. I mean, it was who I was 2 days ago, but today I feel totally different. I feel like a completely different person. Anyway, after their little cringe moment, they head towards the fart cloud. Mobius asks for the next move, and Sylvie says that if she can enchant it, it may tell them how to get to the man behind the curtain. She hands Loki the temp pad, but he says he is staying. He hands it to Mobius, and Mobius offers the other Lokis a way out, but they don't because...
This is our home. We've survived this long. We know what we're doing.
This is your home? Really? Why the hell would you want to stay here? You guys have shown no indication of any sort that you like this place. What even is there for you here? All you guys ever do is run away and survive. You go back to the TVA, you can possibly do something. Maybe get your own life back. If this is successful and they kill Eliath and the guy behind the curtain, what's the point of you guys staying here? Why do you guys want to stay? This isn't a home, it's a shark tank like you said. Kid Loki then hands Loki a sword, saying he will need it on his journey. Oh thanks, a sword will be so helpful in this endeavor against a gas that consumes time and space. After that, the variant Lokis walk off and Mobius gives out his hand for a handshake of friendship. But Loki decides to hug him because he is a friend. Aww, this would be so much more emotional if it made sense or was earned in the slightest. Also, besides Sylvie just trying to enchant the creature, this is such a retarded plan. What does Mobius think he's gonna do when he gets there? He's one man against an entire bureaucracy and tons of officers. Like, do you want to think this plan may be more through, Mobius? How the hell are you gonna burn it down? Wouldn't it be better to stay behind so that everyone has a backup way to get out of there if the enchantment plan fails so that you can escape? Oh wait, no, he doesn't even need to do that. A gateway can be open for Mobius to walk through, and Loki can keep the temp pad, so that if the plan fails, he has an instant way of escaping. Ever thought of that, Master Planner? And if your enchantment plan fails and you escape back to the TVA, just grab a pruning stick and prune yourself again to come back. That sounds more like a reasonable plan than just Mobius walking off with your only guarantee way out of here. Can someone please grow a brain? Anyway, after their stupid hug, Mobius goes to the TVA while Loki and Sylvie decide to take on the fart cloud. Loki thinks it would be a good idea to create a distraction so that Sylvie can focus on enchanting the creature. The plan, however, starts to go awry, and just before Eliath consumes Sylvie, Grand Loki comes back and creates a whole frickin' Asgard by himself. Whoa.
How is he doing that?
What do you mean, how is he doing that? He has magic, you idiot.
I think we're stronger than we realize.
Wow, what a great response. While the beast is distracted, Sylvie says that they will enchant it together. How will they do that since Loki doesn't know how to do enchantment and never learned?
Don't know how.
You do! Because we're the same!
Because they are the same. See, all you need to do is believe in yourself. Yes, these Lokis are the same except for the rest of the show that emphasize how much better Sylvie is and how different the two of them are. But no, when the plot needs them to be the same, they will be, because Kangi wanted it that way. A super definite sign of fantastic writing. When the character is caught in a bind, he just needs to believe. Loki and Sylvie see an area where they can possibly enchant the beast, but it appears to not be working. So they try again, but this time with a little change. Interlocking hands. Anyway, Grant Loki gets eaten, Eliath heads to the others, but they happen to enchant the beast just in the nick of time. Cool. Then they see the castle at the end of time and they head for it. And that is where this episode ends. Good thing too, because we are gonna talk a lot of shit in the next episode. Oh, the next episode is such a doozy. We begin episode 6 with a montage sequence of a lot of space stuff with quotes from the past Marvel movies. And then we see the asteroid rock structure whatever, which has on top of it the house of the one behind it all. And this house is surrounded by the sacred timeline. Sylvie and Loki walk up to the front door of the house, finally ready to end all of this. The door to the house suddenly opens itself up and the two Lokis walk inside to witness a frickin' minute jump scare. Yeah, okay, that was pretty good. It did get me the first time since jump scares aren't usually a thing that happens much in MCU movies, so yay for that successful jump scare moment, I guess. Miss Minute says that they have had a long journey to get here and that he who remains is very impressed. And that he who remains controls all and created all of time in existence. Oh no, say it ain't so. Goddamn, everything that has ever happened was controlled by one person and not choices by characters in the past movies. Yay. Anyway, Miss Minute says that he who remains wants to offer them a deal. That he has been making adjustments and that he can reinsert them back in the timeline without disrupting the flow or creating branches. That he who remains can have Loki win against the Avengers and even grant him the Infinity Gauntlet and Throne of Asgard. Miss Minute says that it's crazy, but that he can make it work. Right. So two things here. One, Miss Minute is lying, or two, she isn't, and that creates even more problems with the writing and the plot. Let us start with the first premise of her lying. She has to be lying because everything in the show is set up that everyone has a predetermined path and that any variation of any kind creates a branch that must be fixed or pruned. That is how it works. So this has to be a lie. But let's say she is telling the truth, right? And that he who remains can actually give them these things without creating branches or problems. Okay then, why the fuck can't he do that for everyone else that exists in the frickin' timeline? Rather than pruning, killing, consuming, deleting all those innocent people who frickin' did the heinous crime of making a choice, how about you rewrite the timeline so that they can go on and not create problems? If he who remains can rewrite it for both Lokis and give them everything they want, why not everyone else in the frickin' universe? Good God. Anyway, the Lokis refuse and say they write their own destiny. They continue on into a room where there are timekeeper statues. Don't know why this guy would have those there for just display, that's just odd. The Lokis start to wonder if he is even alive. Then suddenly an elevator opens to reveal he who remains in his actual form. And it is super duper lame. Wow, the guy who is behind the entire existence of the universe, and he just happened to be some random dude with a purple cloak and fucking sandals? Don't worry, I will address and expand on the critique of this being a lame reveal a bit later on in the episode. But back to this moment, he says that this is super wild that they are here and invites them into his office to talk. Loki is bewildered that he is just a man. Don't worry, so am I, Loki. But Sylvie takes this as an opportunity to try to kill him, but he uses his temp pad to dodge her blades. They arrive at the office and he who remains pours them a drink. They finally take a seat and hear what he has to say. But before we hear that, we must go back to Renslayer's office to see Mobius show up and confront her. She asks if he is going to prune her, but he says his standard is a little higher in that he won't prune a close personal friend. No, please, Mobius, just prune her. She's a terrible character in person as well. She is so boring and uninteresting. Let's just get rid of her, please. Next up, we see that Hunter B-15 is in a random school being chased by TVA officers. She leads one of the officers into a room and says he needs to listen to her. Then a variant of Renslayer pops in and asks what they are doing at her school. Then B-15 says this is a variant of Renslayer, just as Renslayer herself is a variant and that there is much to talk about. Right, so very convenient that Renslayer shows up right at this moment. But let's just say I give that a pass, right? B-15 here has only told one officer of the truth about Renslayer in this scene. Did she do this with every single person on the police force? How many officers did B-15 have to persuade to compromise the entire frickin' police force? Just don't think about it. Back at the end of time, Loki tells Kangi, that's just what we're gonna call him now, that he has lost because Sylvie and Loki have found him. But Kangi rebuttals saying that of course they did, because he knows everything that is going to happen in this room. And that he knew and saw it all, including everything on Lamentis and anything the TVA didn't know. And he proves it by showing both Lokis a transcript of all that is to happen. So here's the thing, right? I know it is just one page, but if they were to grab the other pages of what is supposed to happen, couldn't they just do something different than what is written and therefore Kang's plan is screwed? It's not like Kang is gonna stop them. He's just a normal human being with only a temp pad that teleports him. He can't overpower them, so they could just put him aside, get the script, and then just do something different that isn't written in the script. Very simple, but they don't do that. They just accept it and are like, I guess we can't do anything since he knows what's gonna happen, I guess we'll just sit down.
Everything you guys did on Lamentis, I saw. That little look by the lake.
Oh, drop it. They are not a fucking couple. Stop it. Anyway, Sylvie says they broke out of his game, but Kang says that he paid the entire journey and that they just walked down the road. Don't know why the hell he made their path so freaking long and stupid and not just paved a path that brought them there instantly. Even Sylvie asked the question of why they are here and why did he make that journey so pointlessly, ridiculously, stupidly long.
Then why are we here?
Come on. No, you can't get to the end until you've been changed by the journey. This stuff needs to happen.
Oh wow, they really went there. It had to happen this way because I wrote it this way and I am not changing it. Oh, Kengi also asked Sylvie if she thinks she can trust Loki or anyone at all. And that's that. That was literally brought up for no reason. It doesn't connect to anything going on, nor did it advance anything. He just said, oh, do you trust her and stuff, and they just moved on. It was said for no reason. Oh, but first we must go back to the TVA to hear Ramona's reasoning to why the hell she goes along with the lie.
What if it's a necessary one? Someone created the timekeepers. They created this whole place. They gave us all purpose. I have to believe they had a reason.
Why the hell would you think that? Why would you automatically think that they created you and that they must have good intentions? You may have a reason to believe they did it, you know, for a reason, but you don't have any reason or basis to believe it's for a good one, per se. And why would you? You literally take innocent people when they create a branch, prune the branch timeline and all who are involved with it, and basically kill them in a horrific fashion. You assign guilt to people for a crime that shouldn't even be one, and then prune and kill them for it. Heck, you prune people for not having a number. And even if you think there is a reason for the existence and stuff the TVA does, don't you want to find out what it is so that you know why this was created rather than trusting some blind faith? You had an open opportunity to find out what or who was behind this all and you just threw it away, you stupid bitch. Mobius is right. There is nothing necessary. Why would you believe it?
You know what would happen if we didn't prune the timeline?
What?
Chaos. Death.
You don't know that. You were just told that by all the judges and officials that were before you. For all you know, they are liars too. Mobius points out that she said they were friends and that just out of nowhere she sent him to die and betrayed him. But no, she says he betrayed her. How so?
I looked out for you, and you suffer a crisis of faith and turn to those variants? No, Mobius, I didn't betray you.
So firstly, he suffered a crisis of faith because you lied. He found out you lied. He got solid proof on the tempad that you lied to him. Of course he's not going to trust you. All Loki did was say that the TVA was a lie. That is it. And he didn't even believe him at first. It wasn't even until he found out that Renslayer lied and were being very dodgy of his questions. His response and reaction to this is actually kind of reasonable and logical.
I didn't betray you.
Yes, you did. Can we just kill her, please? She's such an idiot and uninteresting character. Let's just kill her off and be done with it. Anyway, she is about to leave, but Mobius says he can't let her go and goes in to prune her. Yay! Oh, really? Mobius, all you had to do was touch her. Just one touch on her body anywhere and that would have done the trick. Come on. And what was this move? That's so pathetic looking. Anyway, she decides not to prune him and go on her search for free will. Back to the void with the two Lokis, Kangi says that while his methods are deceptive and morally objectionable, his mission never was, and that without him or the TVA, everything would burn and fall into chaos. And he finally gives out the whole history behind the history. Right, so I'm going to repeat back what he says word for word. So let's do this. Eons ago, before the TVA, a variant of myself lived on Earth in the 31st century. He was a scientist, and he discovered that there were universes stacked on top of his own. At the same time, other versions of us were learning the same thing. Alright, so the multiverse was discovered. Let's move on. Naturally, they made contact, and for a while, there was peace. Narcissistic, self-congratulatory peace. They shared technology and knowledge, using the best of their universes to improve the others. However, not every version of me was so pure of heart. To some of us, new worlds only meant one thing: new lands to be conquered. The peace between realities erupted into all-out war, each variant fighting to preserve their universe and annihilate the others. This was almost the end, ladies and gentlemen, of everything and everyone. That first variant encountered a creature created by all the tears in reality, capable of consuming time and space itself, aka Alioth. Quote, I harnessed the beast's power and began experimenting on it. I weaponized Alioth, and I ended the multiversal war. Once I isolated our timeline, all I had to do was manage the flow of time, prevent any further branches, hence the TVA, hence the timekeepers and a highly efficient bureaucracy, hence ages and ages of cosmic harmony, hence you're welcome. Alright, so that was a lot to take in, but let us break this down into simpler terms, shall we? Let's break this down into three big categories. First one is Alioth. Finally, let us talk about how fucking retarded this fart cloud is. Firstly, how did he, a normal human, weaponize this thing? How did he contain it? How does he control it? Secondly, the fact that he ended the war with this fart cloud is ridiculous. We know for one that you can outrun the cloud as Sylvie did for at least a decent amount of time, and as long as you have a decent condition automobile or vehicle within your reach, you're gonna be totally safe, as demonstrated by Mobius here in the Pizza Planet car. Also, according to the previous episode, you can hide from the thing in broad daylight as long as you are quiet, as was established when Loki was trying to get information out of the other variant Lokis. We don't really know how Alioth finds things to consume, let alone sense when variants or other things are around. So with all that in mind, how the hell did this planet conquering versions of Kang fall prey to Alioth? All they needed was a vehicle equivalent to the pizza car or to get something better and they would have been fine. And assuming as well that Alioth can only take up a certain amount of space and not cover an entire planet, these Kangs can just go somewhere else. How the hell does that make any sense? I could survive longer than any of these pathetic conquerors. So yeah, Alioth is a retarded weapon and a retarded idea. Now let's move on to the second category of this breakdown, Kang himself. This probably will fall under a subjective criticism more than an objective one, but I believe my reasoning should be sound. In terms of what would happen to a person's psyche in Kang's position, is this really the best they could come up with? This is the guy who has been in charge of the entire existence of infinite universes, and he is so lame. Think about it. He has been alive for God knows how long, millions of years. He has so much freaking knowledge that a normal human being could barely begin to comprehend. He has the power of creation at his fingertips. He can write and change destinies of people. He is pretty much as close to being a god as you can be. Think about what all of this would do to a normal person and their psychological being. What this would do to their mental state, their physicality. Heck, maybe the way they would act wouldn't even seem human because of their insane abilities, knowledge, long lifespan, and work he has to do. There is so much potential here for ideas of what a guy in this position would act like, be like, etc. The possibilities are only limited by the imagination. And what do they come up with? It's just some guy who has very small brief moments of insanity. That's it. That is the best you could come up with, Marvel? Like really? Come on. There is so much potential for this character that you just threw out in the trash. Anyway, let's now move on to category 3 of the breakdown, which is Kang's explanation of the history of the TVA and why this must happen one way is a complete BS explanation and utterly nonsense. How do I explain this? Oh boy, where do I start? Number 1, if Kang here can manage the flow of time himself, why the heck does he need the TVA? Reminder, everyone is a variant that he kidnapped and erased their minds. And he didn't need to do all this because he can manage the timeline himself. He keeps reiterating that he does the things he does to keep as many people safe as possible, and that he doesn't want to do any unnecessary evil. Well, creating the TVA and kidnapping these people to become officers or work for the TVA, that's a pretty unnecessary evil, because he can do it himself. And rather than make the TVA and run this fake, unnecessary, beyond retarded bureaucracy, you can just rewrite their destinies and put them back, which leads to number 2 of this category 3 critique. If Kang can put people back on the timeline and give them what they want without creating branches, why doesn't he? Rather than taking a variant, putting them through this stupid system, having them tried in a court case that is utterly stupid, why not put them back on a timeline in a way that won't disrupt or create branches? Rather than frickin' killing people for as little of a crime as making a choice you don't like, it has been shown that the way a branch is reset is with this little charge device, and once successfully activated, the branch is completely fixed. So there is no point to kill, delete any variants they take into custody, because killing them does not do anything. The timeline is already fixed and reset before any of the variants go to their court case. So then why do they have to be killed, or reset, or deleted? Why not put them somewhere, like the Void, where they can't create branches, but just take Alioth out and allow them to do what they want freely? That future Void has not been written in stone, so they're not going to create branches or disrupt the time flow, so just let them do whatever they want. They don't need to be killed by Alioth. Or give the variants a new place on the timeline. Like earlier when Miss Minutes says he can give the Lokis what they want, and give them the timeline they want. Unless I guess she was lying about that. Oh wait, no, he wasn't lying. He paved the road for Sylvie and Loki to end up at his house. So why can't he pave other roads for other variants? What's that, viewer? You think I'm looking too deep into this? Well, buckle up, we ain't even halfway through. We're moving on. Third point, what the hell do branches in the timeline have anything to do with the multiversal war? Kang here is from the 31st century, which means the future based on where we are in the timeline. And the war happened in that time period. He ended it and created the TVA at that point, which took away free will from the universe. Which means that before that time period, everyone had free will and it didn't lead to a multiversal war. What led to the multiversal war was the discovery of the multiverse and some bad people discovering it as well. The choices of those evil kings is what started the multiversal war, not the random choices made by other innocent variants on other timelines. How the hell does someone making a wrong choice like eating the wrong sandwich or stepping on the wrong leaf lead to a freaking multiversal war? How does Loki taking the tesseract lead to a multiversal war? The answer? It doesn't, because people making choices never led to the multiversal war. It was the evil doppelgangers of Kang discovering the multiverse itself in the 31st century that led to the war, because they wanted to conquer all of the multiverses. So I ask again, what do people's random choices or branches in the timeline have to do or connect in any way to a multiversal war that happens in the future? It makes no sense, they don't go together, it doesn't fit no matter which way you look at it. It's just stupid writing. Moving on to point number 4. What do timelines have anything to do with the multiversal war? Kang said that after he ended the multiversal war with Goliath, God knows how, he isolated our timeline and managed the flow of time from creating branches. Notice that only up to that point were timelines ever mentioned. Kang in his explanation never mentioned timelines at all beforehand. Everything he explained that led to the multiversal war had nothing to do with time or timelines, unless timelines is just another word for a different universe. But with that being said, what does isolating the timeline have to do with anything? In a future scene that we have not gotten to, he says that he isolated it to keep it from being discovered, and that basically whenever a timeline branches, it makes it easier for another timeline to find it and basically come in and try to conquer it, I guess. At least that is what is implied to somewhat of an extent. So if that's the case, 1, isolating the timeline doesn't matter, because the multiverse was discovered pre-TVA, and also they already know this universe exists, so how does isolating it prevent them from finding them? They already know this timeline exists, how do they lose it? The other thing is, how does a branching timeline or freed timeline get discovered? What, do the evil doppelganger Kangs have a variant energy detection to find the other universes? Do they seriously not know where to find it? I thought they already did find it. Again, what does the multiversal war have to do with time? What does anything that happens in Pompeii have to do with the 31st century multiversal war? Next point, why can't main Kang here just keep killing and stopping his evil doppelgangers rather than try to control timelines and remove free will? Since this explanation has not shown how Loki or anyone making a choice against the timeline leads to the Kang starting a multiversal war, it begs the question on why he doesn't just use Goliath to keep killing and subduing any of the evil doppelgangers that pop up. He has more power than anyone in the universe to get this accomplished, so why not use Goliath to prevent a second one? Anytime an evil Kang is detected and that evil Kang wants to start a war, the main Kang here can just get Goliath to consume that evil doppelganger. And he can just continue to do that and let the timelines go free. Kang here says he knows all and sees all, so if that is the case, defeating an evil version of himself should be super duper easy, since he can know anything about his evil doppelgangers, where they are, what weapons they have, how to defeat them, etc. Just keep killing the bad Kangs and just leave the innocent timelines alone and stop killing random innocent people for making a choice. Next point, what are the motivations behind the variant Kangs? It is very generic. Each of the variants were wanting to annihilate all the others. I thought they wanted to conquer them. You can't conquer lands or multiverses if you completely destroy them, you know. And why did they want to just destroy another random multiverse? Nobody knows. They wanted to conquer or destroy multiverses just because they're bad, that's why. And they somehow conquered their multiverses using the frickin' sticks. Does no one in this universe ever think of using projectile weapons like a gun? Right, now I'm moving on to the final point. How the hell did Kang get access to the timelines? In his explanation, after he said he used Goliath to end the war, he said he isolated the timeline. How did he do that? What, did the timeline just pop up randomly for him after the war was over? Where did it come from? And also, how can he do that? He's just a human. How does a human find and take control of a timeline? Was it through Goliath or something? How or why did it happen is never explained. It just did. I really am getting annoyed with stories that just has things happen just for the sake of them happening with no through line of cause and effect. And we have no cause and effect of what led him to control or get access or have the ability to access the timeline. It makes no sense. Alright, that concludes my criticisms of his explanation regarding the history of the TVA and the war. So let's move on with the plot. Kangi here says that while they may hate the dictator, something far worse will take his place if he is disposed of. He has lived 1,000,000 lifetimes and that this is the only scenario that works out. Except, no, you can just rewrite scenarios in your spare time. This can be literally anything you want. Kangi here says that the Lokis have two options. One is that they kill him and destroy the structure, which will unleash all the evil variants of himself. Or the second option is that the Lokis take control of everything. Loki says he must be lying because why would he give up being in control? I would like to add in there why Kang thinks Loki is a good choice for a replacement. And Kangi says that he's just tired and you know, old. And that he has gone through a bunch of scenarios. And that the only scenario that worked and produced the right person was Loki. Really? Frickin' Loki? Out of all people that exist in the multiverse, the billions and billions and billions of people who could have qualified to take this spot, and the only one that quote-unquote worked out is Loki? You know better than anyone he is such a terrible choice. His path on the original timeline in the MCU highlighted that he isn't good at ruling. Remember Thor Ragnarok? Does this look like someone who cares about ruling or who even is a good fit for the job? Kangi, you can create paths yourself. You said so yourself. Just find the most qualified being and pave a road that will lead him to you, just like you did with them. Why the hell do you think Loki's a good choice? This BS is just to justify the writer's terrible script. Anyway, after that, Sylvie says that he treats lives of people like some kind of game, and that it was personal to her. And honestly, Kang's response here is hilarious.
Oh, grow up! Grow up, Sylvie! Murderer! Hypocrite!
Yeah, I've got no criticism or nothing to really point out. This is just hilarious to me, and honestly a tiny moment in the show that I actually like. Not just because it's slightly funny, but also because we finally see Sylvie get some belittling rather than the main Loki who has been belittled throughout the entire show. Thanks for sharing the load, finally, Sylvie. After that, a huge moment has finally arrived. Kangi reveals that he no longer knows how this meeting with the Lokis are supposed to go, and that he only knew up to a certain point, and that they have finally passed it. And now that he no longer knows what's going to happen, the timeline is now starting to create branches. Wait, what? The timeline is branching? Why? What, so when he doesn't know how something is supposed to go, the timeline just then suddenly breaks free or something? How the hell do these two things connect? Kang also said earlier that killing him would basically free the timeline, but now it is because he just doesn't know how one situation is gonna go. And also, they are outside time and space, so how do their choices affect time and space? This doesn't make any sense. What, does him not knowing the outcome of a situation just magically restore free will to the entire universe? Why is this happening? Oh wait, I know why. Because movie. That's why. Just shut up and consume. Loki is bewildered that he is going to let them decide his fate, but Kangi insists since the worst that will happen is that he will die and other versions of himself will come back anyway. By the way, the show commits this sin a few times throughout, having a character say a piece of information that the audience already knows. That is something that writers try to avoid usually, but in this show, this happens multiple times. Yes, we already know the two options, kill you or take over. This ain't the only piece of info, by the way, that is repeated more than once. It happens throughout the show, and it is so redundant and doesn't advance anything in the story. Therefore, you get kind of bored because you're not being told anything new or nothing's advancing. So stop repeating it, Kangi, and let's move past it. Repeating this stuff is just filler so that this episode meets the runtime. Also, let's point out another thing particularly with this episode, the boring cinematography. While they are here at Kang's desk, certain shots are recycled numerous times. Medium shot Loki, medium shot Sylvie, wide shot both Lokis, Kang shot between both Lokis, Kang shot between both Lokis. Oh my gosh, that is used so many times here. Zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. Like, can you think of any other kind of shots to make this more visually interesting or meaningful rather than just recycling these few? It is extremely lazy and uncreative. I would probably overlook this if the dialogue or conversation that was being had was interesting or well written, but since the writing is garbage, this redundant cinematography is much more noticeable. Anyway, Sylvie says that this is just another manipulation regarding the two choices they have, but Kang insists that it is no lie and decides to prove it by taking off his Tampad so he can't dodge their swords ever again. Sylvie sees this as an opportunity to take a swing, but Loki stops her, saying they should really think about this, which is honestly a little smarter than what has been happening so far, so good job for Loki, I guess. Loki reasons that if they remove him, who is going to fill that spot? Sylvie then assumes Loki wants the throne. Loki rebuttals saying that he doesn't want the throne, and that he is just worried about what will happen if they kill him. Again, props to Loki here, he is actually being a bit more reasonable and a little more intelligent than Sylvie is here. But Sylvie says that she believes he conned her this whole time, and Loki is heartbroken by what she thinks of him. Aww, so sad. So basically they are now in a pickle and start to have a very lazy sword fight. But Loki gets in and calms it down, and tries to reason with Sylvie one more time. He says he's been where she has been and felt what she has felt, and that he doesn't want to hurt her, and that he just wants her to be okay. Wow, he is so loving and caring about a girl he met yesterday. Why are the romances in the Marvel films always so shit? I hope they don't make this anywhere. Oh, yeah, of course. A frickin' course. I'm getting Rise of Skywalker vibes all over again. Fuck, please stop. Oh, good. Thank God. So after that ridiculous kiss, Sylvie pushes him back to the TVA and locks him out. Very nice, she knew how to use that tempad she's never used before without even looking. Then she finally takes her sword, Kangi is all happy to be stabbed, and she delivers a final blow. So now King is dead, and the timeline is now free. Back at the TVA, Mobius and B-15 take note. Also, what are these guys here at their desk doing? Why are you guys even there? There isn't anything to do now, it's over. Go eat a sandwich. Anyway, there's about a 1-minute scene of Loki being very sad, so very sad, that Sylvie doesn't care about him, but decides to man up and goes to Mobius to explain what is going on, that the timeline is freed and that there are a bunch of evil kings that are gonna be coming. Mobius asks him what area of the TVA Loki is from, and oh no, this isn't the same Mobius, it's another Mobius from another timeline. And Loki looks over to the left to see in horror that this dimension there is an evil Kang. And that is it! The end! We did it! We destroyed the MCU! Yay! Now that episode 6 is done, let us go into the final closing thoughts, shall we? It cannot be understated how damaging the show is to the entirety of the MCU. The biggest, of course, being that the drama of every movie that has happened, at least pre-Loki, has been rendered completely void due to the fact that no one in the MCU had free will and that none of their choices mattered. All of the pivotal, dramatic, and big moments that have happened in the MCU was not of any choice that the characters we loved made. Kang did that. It was him all along. That epic moment when Tony Stark in the Avengers film was going to sacrifice himself to save New York and deliver a payoff that was set up earlier in the film when Captain said he wouldn't do such a sacrifice, then he made a choice that would prove that statement wrong by sacrificing himself to save the people of New York. That wasn't his choice. That was Kang. Kang made the sacrifice by forcing Tony to sacrifice himself. That moment in the first Thor when Thor talks with his brother, saying he can't kill an entire race of people because it is morally wrong, highlighting how he has changed and evolved as a character and became worthy to wield the hammer, that wasn't his choice. That was Kang. When Captain America was on the plane headed for New York and he decided to sacrifice himself and crash the plane to save the innocent people, that wasn't Captain America's choice, it was Kang. Ultron wanting to destroy the world? Kang. Captain America trying to save his friend Bucky? Kang. Kang, 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 Kang. Kang. It's all about Kang. How can there be any stakes or any meaning to character choices when it is one guy who is controlling their actions and that the consequences of those choices will happen no matter what choices are made? We also need to point out how ridiculous and vague a Nexus Event is. Like, what if a lion comes in and kills and eats a deer that it wasn't supposed to? Do they come in and put the lion on trial? Do they bring in the deer's corpse as evidence? What if a tree gets struck by lightning that wasn't supposed to? Do they just prune the tree and reset the forest? Do they find the tree guilty of being struck by lightning when it wasn't? Or can they put on trial the lightning bolt that struck the tree? What if a ladybug flies left when it was supposed to fly right? Do they come in and arrest the ladybug? It gets more and more ridiculous the more you think about it. And to think all that happened in the MCU had to happen that way, because if it didn't, someone would have gotten pruned. If Tony had saved his cave companion in the first Iron Man, he would have been pruned. If Captain America had saved Bucky from falling in the train in the first Captain America movie, he would have been pruned. If Iron Man didn't give away his address to the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, he would have been pruned. If Sam Rockwell brought back Venko's actual bird, he would have been pruned. If Thor have actually gone for Thanos' head in Infinity War and successfully hit him, Thor would have been pruned. If Peter's landlord had fixed the damn door, he would have been pruned. If Peter Parker hadn't done his little dance down the street all emo style, he would have been pruned. If Norman Osborn wasn't somewhat of a scientist himself, you get the idea. Speaking of the TVA, they are beyond stupid too. The Time Police is utterly pathetic. They don't have any strength or ability beyond that of a normal human being. They don't have any long-range weapons and only have their pruning sticks. The only other things they have is a tempad that is used to arrive at a time and place specifically, where a variant is, and reset charges which are not really used as weapons. So hypothetically, I could escape the Time Police. I would just need a decent gun, some kind of vehicle, and that would be it. When they come through the gate, I can just start shooting and killing them all. Once those few officers are killed, I get in my car and drive away, rinse and repeat. Any of them pop up again, I just shoot them. And if I run out of ammo, so what? I got a car. They don't have any kind of vehicle to keep up. They are a pathetic police force. If a variant Thanos has all 6, heck, maybe even just 1 Infinity Stone, the TVA officers would be no match. Thanos could just turn them all into spaghetti or blow them away with the Power Stone, or teleport anywhere in the universe with the Space Stone. The TVA is no match for any being that has any weapon above the level of their sticks. Pathetic. This whole bureaucracy makes no sense in this entire show. Speaking of which, same with Loki. Loki's character is utterly destroyed. Firstly, he has lost his competency as a fighter. In the Avengers, again, he took on a bunch of agents at his arrival. He killed a bunch of them, then turned others to serve him. He was able, even if it was short, to manipulate and emotionally mess with Natasha. She says so herself when she talks to Barton later in the same movie. Loki also could take on Captain America and even his own brother, Thor. It doesn't matter that he lost the fight, it is the fact that he has the strength to take on these people who are significantly powerful, especially Thor. In the show, he can't even take on one human being. He gets knocked out in one punch by B-15 here. He couldn't fight the enchanted human being despite having power levels that would take on Thor, and also he doesn't even use his powers, which is just stupid. And also in this scene, he has access to all the magic he knows and never uses it except to grab a robot vacuum. He later shows he has telekinetic power strong enough to lift a frickin' building, but he never uses that level of power when fighting Sylvie's possessed goons. Loki's fighting skills are near pathetic and barely competent to compare to what he does in other MCU movies. There is nothing that has happened in the plot that logically makes sense as to why he is less a skilled fighter than he was before, nor is there any good explanation on why he doesn't use his powers and abilities when he has access to them. Besides his fighting incompetency, the other part of Loki's character that is ruined is his villainy. His arc from being who he was in the first Avengers to what he becomes in the show is completely illogical, nonsensical, and not earned in the slightest. Loki goes from being a mischievous, cunning individual to a lovable, sweet, caring guy, and nothing that happens in the story warrants this change. In most stories, a character changes because of a decision he makes that leads him down a path in which events will happen that will challenge him, challenge what he believes, how he behaves, etc. And usually those events force the character to change their ways so that they overcome the challenge or obstacle set upon them. For example, let's take Finding Nemo. Marlin's family getting eaten is how he becomes so protective of Nemo. His overprotectiveness and paranoia comes from having almost his entire family be killed and taken away from him. He almost lost everything and Nemo is all he has left. So it makes sense that he would be so protective considering what happened. What in the Loki show has happened to have Loki change from him being a mischievous, cunning, and non-sympathetic villain to the opposite? In episode 3, he shows sympathy towards the Lamentus people, and he has no reason to. He just starts caring randomly about them because the script says so. What has happened in this show that would lead him to caring about random people? He got defeated by the Avengers, imprisoned by the TVA, and treated very poorly. And he found out there is a Loki better than him that gets under his skin. If anything, that should make him more villainous and wanting revenge, not caring about random people or Sylvie for that matter. Speaking of, Sylvie is also not a good reason for him to turn good. Marvel is known for having very piss-poor romances in their films, and this is no exception. Loki just falls for someone who he met on the same day. Let's think. What kind of romantic relationship had Sylvie and him had up to this point?
A few questions.
Have you really got nothing else better to do?
Come any closer and I'll kill him.
Fine. For my next trick, I'll make you disappear.
Didn't need your help.
You're so weird!
I'll kill you then.
Or I'll kill you.
It's remarkable that you ever made it as far as you did.
Her name was Sylvie. I just want you to be okay.
But no, just meeting a girl for a day who tries to kill you can really make you change your whole life around. His arc of becoming a good guy comes about because the script says so, not because it makes any sense. These that I have said, I consider the biggest damage that this show has done to the MCU by changing the fundamental understanding on how the universe works for the worst. Honestly, I would say I pretty much am not that impressed with Stage 4 of the MCU. I remember after seeing Avengers Endgame that I predicted that anything made post-Endgame would not live up to the hype or match in quality. That it would all be downhill probably from here, and so far it seems that way. WandaVision was quite a disappointment after the first 3 episodes. Never even saw Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Loki, well, you know what I think now. And Black Widow was absolute trash. Yeah, honestly, I may be in fatigue at this point. I really am not excited for anything Marvel except for the Spider-Man movie. I honestly am looking more forward to Robert Pattinson's Batman than most of anything coming up in Marvel's lineup. And Loki has not helped me at all become more excited. Alright, I think I'm just going to be rambling now. So I will conclude with this. Loki is by far the worst thing to happen to the MCU. If you like it, fine, go ahead. But the writing is still trash. And Marvel could use some writers who know how to better structure a script. But I don't really think they will. So to wrap this up, yeah, Loki is garbage. Thank you for reaching the end of this in-depth critique and analysis. If you would like to see more, you can check out my Rise of Skywalker in-depth critique, or My Boys Season 2 Part 1 in-depth critique. If you do like this video, go ahead and leave a like and consider subscribing to see more content in the future. If you disagree with me about Loki, that is totally fine. I look forward to reading your comments and thoughts. Until then, have a good one.